Chapter 472. Mechanism. On the platform at the top of the mountain, most of the city lords were focused on the screen of light where Zhuowen and Lu Hang were. This was because the battle between Zhuowen and Lu Hang was the closest to each other in terms of strength. Moreover, both of them were geniuses of the heaven rank region. Although they were unlucky to encounter each other in the first round, it still attracted the attention of most people. After all, this kind of evenly matched battle was the most intense, so it was naturally the most interesting to watch. On the other hand, the battles on the other screens were basically one-sided. This kind of battle with such a huge disparity in strength naturally made the audience lose interest. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, Zhuowen and Lu Hang quickly began their fierce battle. The city lord of Furnace City, Lu Teng, still looked as confident as ever. He still looked down on Zhuowen, who came from a low-level city. On the other hand, Gu Tian looked nervous. Although Zhuowen's cultivation was higher than Lu Hang's, with Furnace City's foundation, he probably had powerful treasures like Emperor-rank armor skills and Earth-rank spirit treasures. However, Rattan Armor City didn't have such precious treasures. As time gradually passed, the battle became even more intense. Lu Teng, who was originally confident, frowned slightly. This was because he realized that Lu Hang had already taken out his earthly soul treasure, yet he was still at a disadvantage in Zhuowen's hands. This caused his expression to become somewhat ugly. On the other hand, Gu Tian's expression eased quite a bit. When he saw that Zhuowen had the upper hand, he was naturally much happier and more excited. He even couldn't help but laugh out loud. Lu Hang has even used the Devil Ape Strangle. It looks like Zhuowen is going to lose. On the screen of light, a huge black ape appeared behind Lu Hang. Lu Teng's expression became slightly better. This devil ape was extremely strong, possessing the battle prowess of a peak mid-level extreme king realm expert. It would be extremely troublesome for an ordinary mid-level extreme king realm expert to encounter. On the other hand, Gu Tian was nervous. His palms were sweating. The devil ape summoned by Lu Hang was indeed powerful. Even he was worried for Zhuowen. Qiu Chao's eyes lit up as he stood beside Gu Tian and said, "To catch bandits, first catch the ringleader. If Zhuowen plans to defeat Lu Hang, the devil ape will collapse on its own." Zhuowen dodged the attack of the demonic ape as soon as the lightning wings appeared on his back. Then, he charged straight at Lu Hang. Naturally, Lu Hang did not want to be outdone. However, Zhuowen's strength was simply too strong. Lu Hang was instantly at a disadvantage. However, Lu Hang managed to hold on in the end. The devil ape in front of him had already caught up, and its mountain-like palm chopped down on Zhuowen's head. Hee hee. This Zhuowen is dead for sure. As expected, he's courting death. Not only is he not dodging, he's even trying to take the devil ape's attack head-on. Looks like the so-called geniuses nurtured by low-level cities are all one-track-minded idiots. The scene of Zhuowen clashing head-on with the devil ape without dodging was displayed in front of everyone's eyes. Lu Teng's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. He was well aware of how powerful the devil ape was. Zhuowen's action of clashing head-on with the devil ape was simply courting death. Zhuowen's fist collided with the devil ape's fist. Space instantly collapsed as energy swirled in the air. Countless gusts of wind wreaked havoc, whistling through the air. What followed next was a scene that left everyone dumbstruck. The mountain-like devilish ape was clutching its arm and howling miserably as it rolled on the ground. Some of the sharp-eyed people even noticed the eerie white bone protruding from the devil ape's right shoulder. They knew that the devil ape's right arm was completely crippled. Recovering from the devil ape's miserable state, everyone shifted their gazes and gathered on the tall figure in front of the devil ape. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air as their eyes were filled with disbelief. In the collision just now, Zhuowen didn't even take a step back. Instead, he stood on the same spot, perfectly unharmed. He was as tall and straight as a pine tree. The crowd couldn't get rid of this figure for a long time. Creak. Lu Ting's eyes widened as he clenched his right hand. He stared blankly at the devil ape that was rolling about on the light screen. The corners of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. The confidence on his face had long been frozen and was replaced by disbelief. Hee. City Lord Lu, thank you for letting me win. Guiyue Tian faintly smiled as he cupped his hands towards Lu Teng, who had an ugly expression on his face. However, his heart was filled with joy. Lu Teng's face was ashen as he gloomily stared at Guiyue Tian. He coldly snorted and said, I didn't expect Zhuowen from your Rattan Armor City to have such strength. It seems that Zhuowen has hidden his strength well. With a wave of his sleeve, Lu Teng's eyes flickered continuously. Lu Heng was the top genius of their furnace city and he had a high chance of passing through the trial mountain and entering the third level. However, he was actually eliminated in the first round. This naturally caused Lu Teng to feel extremely depressed. City Lord Gu, congratulations. Zhuowen's strength has somewhat exceeded our expectations. I'm afraid that he has a chance of entering the third level. Xiao Chou and Ouyang Yuntu hurriedly congratulated. Guiyue Tian hurriedly returned the greeting and said modestly, two sirs are too polite. Our Rattan Armor City is also lucky to have produced such a monstrous genius like Zhuowen. If it were Gu Xian and Hu Wuying, I'm afraid that our Rattan Armor City wouldn't have been able to survive the first round. Just now, after Zhuowen won the first round, the other two screens, Gu Xian and Hu Wuying, sadly failed. Guiyue Tian knew that Gu Xian and Hu Wuying had no chance of entering the Tower of Vitality. However, having such a monstrous genius like Zhuowen was already enough. Guiyue Tian had a premonition that Zhuowen could enter the third level of the Tower of Vitality. If people were to know that a martial artist from a low-level city had not only advanced to the second floor of the Origin Qi Tower, but had also successfully advanced to the third floor, who knew what kind of uproar this would cause in Muqin County. Thinking of this possibility, Guiyue Tian couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. At the same time, his admiration for Zhuowen grew. However, Guiyue Tian also knew that the deeper one went into the mountain, the more terrifying the opponents would be. There was even the possibility of encountering the geniuses of the five superpowers. Although Zhuowen was indeed very strong, Guiyue Tian wasn't so blind as to think that Zhuowen would be a match for the geniuses of the five superpowers. After all, the top geniuses of the five superpowers were the cream of the crop. Even if Zhuowen was at the mid-stage of the second round of the Extreme King stage, he still wouldn't be enough. I hope that Zhuowen's luck will be good and that he won't encounter the monstrous geniuses of the five superpowers, Guiyue Tian secretly prayed. Creak. In the hall, after Zhuowen successfully obtained the Green Abyss Origin Fruit, a magnificent bronze door slowly opened at the end of the hall. Zhuowen took in a deep breath when he saw this. Without any hesitation, he directly entered the depths of the bronze door. Behind the bronze door was still a deep tunnel. Zhuowen walked for an entire hour before he discovered a ray of light at the end of the tunnel. Following this ray of light, Zhuowen cautiously advanced. What appeared in front of Zhuowen was a hall several times larger than the one before. Stone pillars that seemed to support the heavens silently stood within the hall. At this moment, the great hall was completely silent. A distant and strange atmosphere slowly drifted out, causing Zhuowen to involuntarily frown. This great hall actually gave him a faint sense of danger. Creak. The moment Zhuowen stepped into the hall, the sound of arrows being drawn continuously rang out. Soon after, the sound of countless arrows rushing through the air rang out from all directions. Subsequently, Zhuowen was shocked to discover that cold light had actually filled the air several dozen feet around him. With Zhuowen's eyesight, he could tell with a single glance that the cold light was countless arrows. Moreover, the surface of these arrows was overflowing with light. They were not ordinary arrows, but at least soul treasure level arrows. With a cold gaze, Zhuowen took a step forward and drew his blood-red spear. With a shake of his right hand, blood-red light flashed and turned into spear shadows that filled the sky in front of him. At the same time, Zhuowen cautiously used the limitless shocking cloud art, raising the might of the blood-red spear to the limit. Countless clouds and mist were attached to the spear shadows that filled the sky. Suddenly, the power of the blood-red spear shadows increased by dozens of times. In an instant, the originally extremely dense spear shadows expanded several times, almost enveloping an area of several dozen feet above Zhuowen. Clang clang clang. The sound of metal clashing rang out unceasingly, and countless cold lights burst forth. The dense rain of arrows in the sky collided with the spear shadows, and suddenly countless sparks flew in all directions. What powerful arrows! How can these arrows be so powerful? His expression changed slightly. Half of the defensive circle formed by the spear images had been broken by the dense rain of arrows. He was afraid that he would not be able to hold on for long. Boom! In just a breath's time, the rain of arrows directly broke through the defensive circle of the spear shadows, enveloping Zhuowen from all directions. Boundless sword aura. Open it. Growling deeply, Zhuowen slapped his cosmos bag and released countless sword lights. 108 sword-shaped spirit treasures formed an iron wall around Zhuowen. Clang clang clang. Countless arrows rained down and blasted against the impenetrable walls. Dense sparks burst out and were exceptionally dazzling. Exhaling lightly, although the defense of the boundless sword aura seemed to be on the verge of collapse, at least it had blocked the attack of the arrow rain. After 5 breaths of time, the attack of the arrow rain finally stopped. However, Zhuowen's expression was extremely gloomy. Because through his mind, he could clearly feel that the surface of the boundless sword aura was rapidly dimming. Obviously, it had suffered a lot of damage under the attack of the arrow rain. Waving his right hand, Zhuowen stared at the surface of the sword-shaped spirit treasures that had become bumpy. His expression became even more unsightly. The sudden appearance of the arrow rain was so powerful that even Zhuowen was a little shocked. The arrows on the ground are actually all high-grade low-grade spirit treasures. There are thousands of arrows shot out at once. How extravagant! Looking at the light flowing in his hand and the arrows surging with aura, Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. At the same time, he stared at the bumpy surface of the boundless sword aura, and his face revealed a trace of relief. Chapter 473. Ling Xiaodao's calculations: under the attack of the arrows, the boundless astral blade was severely damaged. It's almost useless. Zhuowen couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the everlasting sword aura in his hand that had become full of holes. The everlasting sword aura had accompanied him for a few years, and it was extremely useful. Now that it had been damaged to such an extent, it was basically useless in battle. Kid! Are you stupid? The boundless astral blade is formed by 108 sword-shaped spirit treasures. The core is the formation diagram inside. As long as the formation diagram is not broken, the boundless astral blade will not be damaged. Now, as long as you repair these damaged sword-shaped spirit treasures, the boundless astral blade will still be able to recover. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out. He continued to speak like an old man. You are now a rank 4 Arcana Master, and you have several types of earth fire on you. Moreover, you have things like refining crystal jades. You can completely repair it in a short period of time and increase its power. Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. Xiao Hei's words were not without reason. Now that he was a rank 4 Arcana Master, repairing a rank 4 origin formation was not a problem at all. Well said. These arrows are all high-grade low-grade spirit treasures. I can completely use the earth fire to melt these arrows and repair the damage of the boundless astral blade. Nodding his head, Zhuowen waved his right hand and unceremoniously collected the thousands of arrows on the ground into his Qianquan bag. These arrows were all high-grade low-grade spirit treasures. The value of thousands of arrows was already comparable to a low-grade earth-grade spirit treasure. After collecting the arrows, Zhuowen finally noticed the situation of this large hall. This large hall was much larger than the previous one. The surrounding stone pillars were like pillars that supported the heavens, extremely grand and vast. A sense of vicissitudes faintly leaked out from them. In the center of the stone pillars, there was a broken stone pillar. On the broken cross-section of the stone pillar, a long spear that looked like a human spine was quietly inserted. Around the bone spear, there seemed to be a terrifying energy circulating, constantly devouring the surrounding energy. Moreover, the space around the bone spear showed signs of collapsing. This bone spear was definitely not simple. On top of the bone spear was a line of glowing words: Tyrannical Dragon Scale Bone Spear, Mid-Grade Earth-Grade Spirit Treasure. Mid-Grade Earth-Tier Spirit Treasure. Zhuowen couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he saw the word of light. This was the first time he'd seen a mid-grade Earth-rank spirit treasure. Although the 9-Will Heaven Incinerating Cauldron's grade was definitely far superior to a mid-grade Earth-ranked spiritual treasure, without the supply of Earth Fire, the 9-Will Heaven Incinerating Cauldron's strength was only equivalent to a low-grade Earth-ranked spiritual treasure. Its strength might not even be comparable to the dragon-scale Tyrannical Bone Spear. Brat. This Tyrannical Dragon-scale Bone Spear is very suitable for you. You have always been a spear expert. Now that you have this Tyrannical Dragon-scale Bone Spear, your strength will increase by a lot. Xiao Hei's voice became a little excited. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen helplessly said, "Unfortunately, it's not that easy to obtain this Tyrant Dragon-scale Bone Spear. I'm afraid that the opponent I'll encounter next will be extremely difficult to deal with." As he said that, Zhuowen's gaze shifted and his attention was immediately focused on the other side of the bronze door. He knew that the opponent of this hall should be behind that bronze door. Zhuowen wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he crossed his arms and closed his eyes as he silently waited. He had a premonition that the opponent this time would be a genius from the heaven rank region. Moreover, it would be even more difficult to deal with than Lu Hang. After all, the treasures this time were too abundant. Creak. The ear-piercing sound of a door opening slowly echoed. His ears twitched and Zhuowen's eyes suddenly opened as he stared at the other bronze door. Whoosh! A ghostly shadow suddenly rushed out from the other side of the bronze door at lightning speed. Whoosh! Whoosh! The moment this figure stepped into the main hall, the sounds of countless crossbows being fired rang out. Ear-piercing sounds of air being pierced rang out throughout the main hall. Countless cold lights flickered, and a dense rain of arrows enveloped this figure. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. It seemed that the rain of arrows wasn't just aimed at his door. It seemed that every door contained such a strange mechanism. Looks like I'll have to be even more careful in the Trial Mountains. After all, the danger doesn't just come from other cultivators, but from these traps as well. I wonder if this person will be able to deal with this rain of arrows. Zhuowen was well aware of the might of this rain of arrows. An ordinary mid-second will Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator would find it difficult to block it. Perhaps only a late second will Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator would be able to avoid this rain of arrows without suffering any damage. A mechanism? A surprised voice rang out. Then, the figure that had rushed out had an unchanging expression as he twisted his waist and spun 360 degrees. At the same time, 2 dragon-headed blades had appeared in his hands at an unknown time. As his body rotated, the sabers in his hands were like agile dragon heads, completely blocking off the rain of arrows that enveloped him. He even had some strength left in his feet as he took a step in the air, flying out of the range of the rain of arrows. Many of the arrows missed their target. An expert. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. The strength that the man before him had displayed was extremely great. He had actually managed to dodge the rain of arrows with such ease. After all, Zhuowen had been in a rather sorry state when he'd entered the trial grounds. Thump thump. After dodging the rain of arrows, the man tapped his feet in the air and landed in the hall with great agility. His eyes narrowed as he immediately noticed Zhuowen, who wasn't too far away. He wasn't very old, around 20 at most. His figure was rather thin, and his face was sickly pale. He wielded two dragon-headed blades that were extremely disproportionate to his figure. His skinny figure and his huge blades formed a great contrast. Both of them gave off a strange aura. Aren't you the genius Zhuowen from that low-level city? I never thought that I would meet you here. After this person noticed Zhuowen, who was not far away, a simple and honest smile appeared on his face. He actually walked towards Zhuowen in a carefree manner. There was no hostility in his expression. Instead, he revealed a trace of sincerity. Zhuowen also recognized this person. He was Ling Tian City's number 3 genius, Ling Xiaodao. He was quite short, but he liked to use the two blades that tall and muscular men liked. Ling Tian City was quite famous. It was also a super city, but it was the undisputed number 1 super city. No matter if it was in terms of strength or foundation, it was far superior to other super cities, and it was very close to the 5 great super factions. It was said that Ling Tian City's number 1 genius, Ling Wuxia, had already broken through to the early stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm, and his strength was very close to LV Yongsheng's. Even though he was still slightly inferior, the difference wasn't that great. It had to be said that apart from the 5 great super factions, it was very difficult for other factions to nurture a young genius who had reached the Ultimate Emperor realm. However, Ling Tian City had done it, which showed how extraordinary its foundation and strength were. Even though Ling Xiaodao was only Ling Tian City's number 3 genius, his strength was not weak. His cultivation had already reached the late stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm, and the two blades in his hands were both Earth-rank low-level spiritual treasures, called the Dragon Wool Blades. What's going on with Ling Xiaodao? We're clearly opponents, so why is this guy acting like nothing is wrong and trying to worm his way into being friends with me? Looking at the sincere Ling Xiaodao in front of him, Zhuowen was a bit unsure of the former's intentions. He frowned, but did not do anything. He wanted to see what Ling Xiaodao was up to. Ling Xiaodao stopped when he was 3 meters away from Zhuowen. He looked at Zhuowen with a smile and said, "Actually, I quite admire you. You're clearly a cultivator from a low-level city, but you were able to cultivate to the Ultimate Emperor realm. This is somewhat inconceivable to us. It's just luck." Zhuowen shook his head and said calmly. "Luck? I don't think you were able to reach the Ultimate Emperor realm because of luck. Which one of those who can reach the Ultimate Emperor realm doesn't have a firm will? You're younger than me, but you were able to reach this level. You're indeed a genius." Ling Xiaodao shook his head and sighed. Then, he narrowed his eyes and stared at Zhuowen. He said in a low voice, "It's just a pity that you met me, Ling Xiaodao. Because what I, Ling Xiaodao, love the most is to kill young and talented geniuses like you, hee." As he spoke, Ling Xiaodao actually began to laugh maniacally. His originally sincere gaze was now replaced by a trace of madness. 2 blades of light flashed past Zhuowen's eyes like lightning. So fast. Zhuowen had just reacted when the 2 blades of light smashed into his chest. The shock caused Zhuowen's chest to feel stuffy. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. "Ha! Zhuowen, you're too naive. Those who know my fighting style won't let me come within 10 meters of you. Because my blade is faster than lightning, no one can receive my blade within 10 meters. So, die." Ling Xiaodao laughed loudly again. He stomped his feet and his entire body was like a hurricane. Holding his blades with both hands, he chased after Zhuowen who was flying in front of him. The 2 blades were like cold lights in the cold night. They formed a crisscross pattern and shot toward Zhuowen's chest. Being in midair, Zhuowen's face finally turned ugly. He did not think that the sincere expression that Ling Xiaodao had shown at the beginning was actually a lie. His goal was to get within 3 feet of him and use his sharp blade. Actually, the main reason was that Zhuowen was careless. Although he was always on guard against Ling Xiaodao, he didn't know his fighting style. He also didn't know that Ling Xiaodao's blade was so fast that he couldn't catch it. If he knew Ling Xiaodao's fighting style, Zhuowen definitely wouldn't let him come within 10 meters of him. He definitely wouldn't let him take the initiative to attack. However, it was too late to think about this now. Ling Xiaodao's blade was already close to Zhuowen's body. Waves of sharp blade qi connected together and actually enveloped Zhuowen's vital points at the same time. If he was hit by Ling Xiaodao's attack, even if Zhuowen had an abnormal recovery ability, he would still die. Do you really think I'm so easy to pinch? Although Ling Xiaodao had made the first move, Zhuowen did not panic at all. He clenched his fists, and his body was covered with countless blood veins. A terrifying blood flame formed a blood shield in front of him. Boom! Chapter 474. Counterattack Thump. 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 Rapid footsteps rang out. After retreating a dozen steps, Zhuowen barely managed to stabilize himself. He stared at Ling Xiaodao with a dark expression, and for the first time, a trace of anger appeared in his eyes. This Ling Xiaodao was too treacherous. His cultivation was clearly higher than his, yet he still used such a despicable method to trick him. This person was simply a treacherous villain from head to toe. This caused Zhuowen's heart to be filled with killing intent. Your reaction isn't bad. Ling Xiaodao stood with his blade in hand. He was somewhat astonished as he looked at the gloomy-looking Zhuowen in front of him. A trace of regret appeared in his eyes. Originally, he had believed that his previous plan would be able to cleanly finish off Zhuowen. However, he did not expect that it would fail. Ling Xiaodao, is it? No one has ever dared to scheme against me, Zhuowen. You're the first, so in order to repay you, I'll beat you half to death. Zhuowen's gaze was dark. Under the effects of the heart of the underworld, the 2 hideous wounds on his chest were healing at a visible rate. At this moment, he was truly furious. Beat me half to death. Ling Xiaodao looked at Zhuowen with some amusement, as if he was looking at a joke. He laughed loudly. Are you sure your brain works? You dare to speak such arrogant words with your cultivation at the mid-ultimate king realm? You're lucky that I didn't kill you just now. Your luck won't be so good after this. With that, Ling Xiaodao waved his blades and stepped lightly on the ground. His entire body turned into a blur as he shot towards Zhuowen. In an instant, he arrived before Zhuowen. Countless blades of light filled the air and directly blasted towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen was not to be outdone. He extended his arm that was covered in bloody veins. Countless bloody flames immediately turned into countless bloody hands and blasted towards the incoming Ling Xiaodao. The surrounding air evaporated and the temperature rose rapidly. Ling Xiaodao did not dodge. The dragon intent blades in his hand struck out like a whirlwind. In the blink of an eye, he had slashed out several hundred times. At a glance, all that could be seen were the cold glints of the blades as they sliced through the air. Boom! Boom! Ling Xiaodao's quick blade was extremely powerful. In just 2 breaths of time, he had actually shattered the countless blood hands formed by the surrounding blood flames. His entire body rushed out of the endless blood flames like a hot knife through butter. The 2 blades in his hands were like a whirlwind as they directly slashed towards Zhuowen below. Zhuowen's gaze sank. This Ling Xiaodao was indeed an expert, and he was also a genius in using the blade. His blade was so fast that Zhuowen could not catch the specific trajectory, and could only vaguely see a trace of the blade. With Ling Xiaodao's frighteningly fast blade, he basically didn't need to use any moves to break through most of the opponent's attacks and defenses. Although the blood hand released by Zhuowen was powerful, Ling Xiaodao's blade was fast, ruthless, and accurate. In the blink of an eye, he had slashed out hundreds of times, and all of them had hit the same spot on the blood hand. The power of Ling Xiaodao's slash was indeed not strong, but with hundreds of slashes superimposed on the same position, the power that could erupt was enough to split mountains and shatter rivers. Zhuowen had never heard of or seen such a blade technique. Humph! I would like to see the power of your quick blade. With a cold snort, Zhuowen was not to be outdone. He took out his blood-red spear, and with a shake of his right hand, the blood-red spear shadows swept towards Ling Xiaodao like countless raindrops. It's just a small trick. Watch me break your spear shadows. Ling Xiaodao was extremely disdainful of Zhuowen's demon moon dragon spine spear. He could see at a glance that the blood-red spear in Zhuowen's hand was only a high-grade spirit treasure. How could such a spirit treasure block the power of his dragon will dual blades? Clang! Clang! Shocking cloud limitless art. Zhuowen wasn't afraid of the blade qi that was almost within reach. He shook his right hand, and suddenly, countless clouds and mist enveloped him. His figure disappeared, and he dodged the blade qi that Ling Xiaodao had sent towards him. Chu Ba Cheng's shocking cloud limitless art. Seems like you are quite rich. You actually have such an emperor-tier armor skill. But it's useless against me. Wild blade wind. Ling Xiaodao let out a low growl as his right arm stretched out like a nimble snake. His large blade suddenly danced as countless blade auras swept out, forming a hurricane of blade auras that overflowed and directly broke through the surrounding clouds and mist. Whoosh! A blood-red light flashed, and a huge blood-red spear came out from behind Ling Xiaodao, directly stabbing towards the back of his head, and a wave of blood-red energy dissipated. Clang! 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 Zhuowen's clear and melodious shout rang out. Instantly, the great blood-red spear's energy dissipated, and a huge blood-red spear phantom descended from the void. A powerful force directly attached itself to the great blood-red spear, causing the great blood-red spear's power to increase to the limit. Feeling the sudden increase in power behind him, Ling Xiaodao's expression changed slightly. He lightly waved the dragon intent blade in his right hand, and countless blade auras swept out behind him, directly blocking the blood-colored spear. At the same time, he took a step back and retreated more than 10 steps. Only then did he look at Zhuowen, who was not far away, with a serious expression. Clang! 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 At the moment of the collision, Zhuowen retreated again and again, because the speed of Ling Xiaodao's blade was even faster than before. The violent explosion was like a hurricane wreaking havoc, directly bombarding Zhuowen's blood-colored great spear endlessly. Clang! 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 Zhuowen's complexion slightly changed, and he raised his blood spear horizontally. Ling Xiaodao's attack finally landed on the blood spear, and a loud and clear sound rang out. Countless qi waves burst forth, and sparks flew everywhere. Clang! 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 Zhuowen! Clang! 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 How can Zhuowen's body be so strong? Clang! 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 Now it's my turn. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He did not expect the Moon Demon Dragon's pine spear to be destroyed like this. This Ling Xiaodao's dragon will dual blades were indeed powerful. Even the Moon Demon Dragon's pine spear could not block them. Since the moon demon dragon's pine spear had been broken, Zhuowen no longer had any intention of hiding his strength. The blood flames on his body surged out, and his muscles swelled up, dyed in a layer of strange blood red. The strength of your physical body is indeed not bad, but do you think you can beat me just because of this? That's too arrogant and conceited. Ling Xiaodao sneered. Try it and you'll know. Zhuowen shook his head and suddenly clenched his left hand. Waves of blue and green flames surged out and revolved around Zhuowen's body. Immediately, he stepped on the ground and opened his lightning wings. He directly rushed towards Ling Xiaodao with a cold and emotionless face. Humph! Ling Xiaodao coldly snorted in disdain. His two blades were ready to attack, and he also rushed towards Zhuowen. His aura surged, and his strength swirled in the air. Boom! 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 In an instant, the two of them directly exchanged blows. Zhuowen's fists were like steel, and he was not afraid of Ling Xiaodao's slashes at all. He punched out, accompanied by the two-colored flames, and Ling Xiaodao was swept away, directly blasting away the dragon with dual blades. This guy's physical body. What's going on? The more Ling Xiaodao fought, the more surprised he became. Zhuowen was clearly bare-handed, and he was holding an earthly soul treasure. Now, he was being suppressed by Zhuowen. The feeling of being suppressed made Ling Xiaodao feel extremely uncomfortable. Die! Ling Xiaodao was ruthless. He did not plan to defend. His two blades blasted out together, and directly slashed towards Zhuowen's neck. Countless blades flashed, sharp and overbearing. Narrowing his eyes, Zhuowen sneered. The two-colored flames on the surface of his body surged out, forming a thick layer of two-colored fire shield around his neck, and directly blocked Ling Xiaodao's sharp blade. The one who should die should be you. Ling Xiaodao's attack had completely given up on defense, so Zhuowen instantly found an opening. His fists turned into claws, and directly clasped Ling Xiaodao's wrists, and fiercely squeezed. Creak! Ling Xiaodao's eyes were wide open, and his wrists were completely crippled. The dragon with dual blades in his hands fell to the ground, and Zhuowen did not show any mercy. His knees, which were ready to attack, suddenly kicked upwards. Boom! Chapter 475. The Everlasting Old Man's Resentment. Pucci. Fresh blood gushed out of Ling Xiaodao's mouth like a faucet that wasn't turned on properly. Ling Xiaodao's eyes were wide open and filled with blood. He felt a heart-wrenching pain in his abdomen, as if his internal organs had been smashed. With a toss of his right hand, Zhuowen casually threw Ling Xiaodao's body to the side. Soon after, he squatted beside him and said indifferently, "You've already lost. Now hand over the heaven rank imprint." Ling Xiaodao trembled as he tilted his head and stared at Zhuowen. His eyes were filled with fear. The Zhuowen in front of him was too terrifying. The strength of his physical body was actually able to block his dragon with dual blades. The blade technique he was most proud of was also completely useless. This battle could be said to be exceptionally sullen. Whoosh! After obtaining the heaven-ranked imprint, Zhuowen sent Ling Xiaodao flying with a kick and walked towards the broken pillar in the center of the hall with large strides. His face also revealed a trace of an excited smile. Although the moon demon dragon's pine spear was damaged, now that he was able to obtain an even more powerful tyrannical dragon scale bone spear, Zhuowen was naturally quite satisfied. Not far away, Ling Xiaodao, who was kicked flying, resentfully glanced at Zhuowen's back. His eyes flickered and his right hand patted his chinquan bag. Immediately, two undetectable thin needles flew towards the back of Zhuowen's head. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. With two fingers of his right hand, two incomparably black needles suddenly appeared between his fingers. Zhuowen could even feel that the surface of these two needles had a terrifying corrosive property. They should have been coated with poison. You're courting death. Originally, Zhuowen didn't want to bother with Ling Xiaodao. After all, Ling Xiaodao had been scheming against him from the start. But in the end, he didn't kill him and only took the heaven rank imprint. But now, Ling Xiaodao's sneak attack from behind had immediately angered Zhuowen. In addition, Zhuowen didn't feel good about him from the start. At this moment, Zhuowen no longer held back. With a step, he directly rushed towards Ling Xiaodao with a face full of killing intent. Zhuowen, you dare to kill me? I'm a genius from Ling Tian City. If you kill me, do you not want Vine Armor City anymore? At this moment, Ling Xiaodao was also secretly regretting. The sneak attack just now was also because of the imbalance in his heart, but he regretted it the moment he made his move. Now that he saw Zhuowen coming over with murderous intent, Ling Xiaodao was immediately terrified. Bang! What greeted Ling Xiaodao was a kick, which directly landed on his chest. The powerful force even caused his sternum to cave in, and Ling Xiaodao directly fell into the wall at the side of the hall, almost embedding himself into it. To die under your own weapon, you should be able to die in peace. Picking up the dragon will dual sabers that had been tossed aside, Zhuowen tossed them with his right hand. The two shiny sabers flew directly towards Ling Xiaodao on the wall. If Ling Xiaodao was pierced by the dragon will dual sabers, he would definitely die. At this moment, Ling Xiaodao was filled with regret. He did not expect that his actions just now would bring him such a result. Clang! However, the instant the dragon will dual sabers entered Ling Xiaodao's body, a pillar of light shot into Ling Xiaodao's body, and he instantly disappeared from the hall. The dragon will dual sabers missed and directly stabbed into the wall. Was he teleported out? Forget it. These dragon will dual sabers are Earth-rank soul treasures after all. They can be used as compensation for the sneak attack just now. Glancing at Ling Xiaodao who had disappeared, Zhuowen coldly snorted. With a wave of his right hand, he directly put the dragon will dual sabers into his universe pouch, and then directly walked towards the broken pillar in the middle of the hall. When Zhuowen was about to take out the tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear, the platform at the top of the trial mountain burst into an uproar. Everyone stared blankly at the scene of Ling Xiaodao being beaten to the point of vomiting blood by Zhuowen, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Why is this Zhuowen so abnormal? I can accept that he can defeat Lu Hang. After all, Lu Hang is only at the early stage of the second wheel, while this Zhuowen is at the mid-stage of the second wheel. But how could Ling Xiaodao be defeated? This is a monstrous genius at the late stage of the second wheel. This Zhuowen's battle record has indeed exceeded everyone's expectations. Even Ling Xiaodao was defeated by him. I'm afraid this kid's strength is already comparable to a late stage of the second wheel, or even stronger. He defeated someone of a higher rank than him. This is an ability that only monstrous geniuses have. This Zhuowen's talent has indeed entered the category of monstrous geniuses. Countless people's gazes towards Zhuowen had already changed. Originally, many of the city lords of the intermediate, advanced, and even super cities didn't think too highly of Zhuowen and Rattan Armor City. However, after Zhuowen consecutively defeated Lu Hang and Ling Xiaodao, they finally began to pay attention to this dark horse that had suddenly appeared. Lu Teng, who was originally somewhat unconvinced, was now completely silent. Since Zhuowen was able to defeat Ling Xiaodao, then Lu Hang's defeat was truly not unjustified. Although Lu Teng was arrogant, he wasn't arrogant to the point of looking down on others. He was still very clear about the difference between Lu Hang and Ling Xiaodao. Since even Ling Xiaodao wasn't a match for this Zhuowen, Lu Hang's loss was excusable. Among them, the most pleasantly surprised was naturally Gu Yutian. At this moment, he was so excited that he couldn't speak. Originally, Ling Xiaodao's appearance had caused him to feel extreme despair, but in the end, Zhuowen had broken this trace of despair and counterattacked to defeat Ling Xiaodao. This result was beyond his expectations. Xiao Chou and Ouyang Yuntu naturally congratulated him repeatedly. In their hearts, They were happy for Guyu Tian, and at the same time, they looked at Zhuowen even more highly. The everlasting old man, who was still in the group, seemed extremely lonely and gloomy at this moment. After the results of the second round came out, the remaining geniuses of Tyrant Chu City had all been eliminated. In other words, their Tyrant Chu City's origin Chi Tower battle had come to an end. Damn it! If Lu Che, Zhou Yi, and Zhou Fan hadn't died, our Tyrant Chu City wouldn't be in such an awkward situation right now. The everlasting old man clenched his fists tightly. At this moment, he also noticed the uproar around him. His gaze gathered over and immediately saw the light screen of Zhuowen and Ling Xiaodao's battle. On the light screen, after Zhuowen violently kicked Ling Xiaodao, causing him to vomit blood and fly backwards, the everlasting old man's eyes widened. He muttered to himself in disbelief, how can this little bastard Zhuowen be so strong? Even Ling Xiaodao was defeated by him. Could it be that this little bastard was hiding his strength from the beginning? And Lu Che and the others who were chasing this little bastard were all killed by him? Right. It must be this little bastard who killed them. Otherwise, how could Lu Che, who had a life talisman, have died in the dark forest? The everlasting old man seemed to have suddenly become enlightened. Lu Che, Zhou Yi, and Zhou Fan's deaths in the dark forest were extremely strange. The everlasting old man had long suspected that they were killed by Zhuowen. However, because Zhuowen was only at the early stage of the second wheel, he didn't dare to be certain. But now, Zhuowen had displayed such great strength. Even Ling Xiaodao, who was at the late stage of the second wheel, had been defeated by him. All of this proved that Zhuowen had enough strength to kill Lu Che and the others. It really was this little bastard. Lu Che, Zhou Yi, and Zhou Fan were all brought up by this old man. You little bastard actually killed them just like that. This old man won't let you off. The everlasting old man's eyes were scarlet red as he fiercely glared at Zhuowen's figure on the screen. He couldn't wait to kill this Zhuowen right now to prevent any future troubles. However, the everlasting old man quickly calmed down. He coldly stared at Guyu Tian, then looked at Zhuowen's figure on the screen and said in a low voice, "Hee hee. Since I know you're the murderer, then don't even think about leaving the Tower of Vitality alive. Of course, don't even think about entering the third level of the tower. When the time comes, go directly to the underworld to accompany Lu Che and the others." The everlasting old man fiercely glared at Zhuowen on the screen again. His expression slowly calmed down. He knew that Zhuowen was still in the Mountain of Trials, so it wasn't easy to make a move on him. However, once Zhuowen left the Mountain of Trials, he would immediately kill Zhuowen. With his cultivation at the Ultimate Emperor realm, instantly killing this Zhuowen was a simple matter. Although killing a contestant was against the rules set by the Lu Nantian, he would be able to do it quickly. However, as long as he acted quickly and killed Zhuowen before anyone else could react, then even if the Lu Nantian came to blame him, he wouldn't kill Zhuowen for a lowly commoner from a low-level city. At most, he would only give him a light punishment. At the front of the group, the Lu Nanshan's group of 5 were also quite surprised by Zhuowen's performance on the screen. No matter what, Ling Xiaodao was still a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, but he was still defeated by Zhuowen in the end. This naturally surprised the Lu Nantian. This Zhuowen hid his strength quite well. I originally thought that this kid's limit was to defeat a mid-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, but now he's given me an even bigger surprise. The Lu Nantian smiled. Ha! Actually, I couldn't see through this Zhuowen. When he was fighting with Ling Xiaodao, this Zhuowen had been hiding his strength. However, after the weapon in his hand was destroyed by Ling Xiaodao, he burst out with his strength and completely defeated Ling Xiaodao. This kid wants to keep a low profile, but unfortunately, the opponent he met made it impossible for him to keep a low profile. Xian Yuanli had his hands behind his back, and his face was full of smiles. His interest in this Zhuowen grew even more. Brother Xuanyuan's words are reasonable. This Zhuowen's luck is really bad. He met 2 heaven stage geniuses in a row, but this also exposed his true strength. This Zhuowen can't be underestimated. Marquis Yongxing Qin Ye pinched his thumb and middle finger together and smiled. However, there's still a huge gap between him and the top geniuses of our 5 superpowers. However, I feel that this kid can enter the top 100 of the Origin Qi Tower and have a chance to enter the 4th floor to fight for the inheritance of the ancient ruins. The Lu Nantian nodded, agreeing with Qin Ye's words. Zhuowen's performance was indeed stunning, but he still couldn't compare to the true top geniuses of their superpowers. However, he still had hope of entering the top 100 of the Origin Qi Tower. When the Lu Nantian's words came out, the other 4 were somewhat surprised. This Lu Nantian's evaluation of Zhuowen was quite high. The top 100 of the Origin Qi Tower wasn't that easy to fight for. Brother Lu is exaggerating a bit. This Zhuowen's strength is indeed strong, but he's only comparable to a late-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. If he wants to enter the top 100, he needs to at least be at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor Realm. The Marquis of Baichuan shook his head. Perhaps. Chapter 476. Tyrannical Dragon Scale Bone Spear Hum. A clear hum rang out, forming a sound wave that rippled through the entire hall. The air vibrated, creating a vacuum in a radius of several dozen meters. Good spear. Zhuowen waved his right hand as he looked at the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear lying quietly in his palm. His face was filled with excitement and joy. The might of the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear had exceeded his expectations. Just a hum from it was already so powerful. As expected of a mid-grade Earth-rank spirit treasure. The tyrannical dragon scale bone spear's appearance was extremely strange. Its entire body was pure white, and the bones on its surface protruded like a spine. If one were to touch it carefully, the surface of the bone spear would feel as rough and uneven as dragon scales. It was extremely strange. As if responding to Zhuowen's mood, the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear trembled and let out another hum of pleasure. It was clear, and endless. Then I'd like to test the might of this tyrannical dragon scale bone spear. With a hearty laugh, Zhuowen impatiently took a step forward. His figure flashed, and the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear in his hand was like a nimble little snake as it swung through the air with ease. Streaks of spear shadows appeared like raindrops and quickly disappeared. However, wherever they passed, the space collapsed. It was as if there had been an intense explosion. Zhuowen was exceptionally carefree. The tyrannical dragon scale bone spear was much more powerful than the Moon Fiend Dragon's Pine Spear. Just an ordinary move could faintly cause the surrounding space to show signs of collapsing. Not bad. With this tyrannical dragon scale bone spear, you have strength comparable to a peak 2-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Coupled with your many trump cards, you now have the qualifications to challenge LV Yongsheng. Xiao Hei's voice rang out at this moment. Her voice was filled with gratification. Clearly, with the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear, Zhuowen had already become a top expert in the battle for the Vitality Tower. An Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator isn't that easy to deal with. Even if he's only at the early stage, LV Yongsheng still has many trump cards up his sleeve. Trying to challenge LV Yongsheng now is just asking for trouble. Of course, I might be able to defeat LV Yongsheng if I'm at the peak of the second Will Emperor Realm. Zhuowen shook his head. He knew himself very well. Although LV Yongsheng's strength wasn't strong and was only at the early stage of the 3-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm, this strength was before LV Yongsheng had entered the Essence Qi Pagoda. Now that the Essence Qi Pagoda had been open for several months, Zhuowen didn't believe that LV Yongsheng would stagnate. In addition to LV Yongsheng, your enemy is also Su Tianliang. You killed Su Tianliang's younger brother. That Su Tianliang won't leave it at that. Xiao Hei reminded. Hearing this, Zhuowen's face suddenly turned ugly. He had thoroughly experienced how difficult it was to deal with Su Tianliang. When he was in the dark forest, if it wasn't for the life talisman on him, he might have really died because of it. I hope my luck isn't so bad that I'll meet Su Tianliang in the training mountain. Shaking his head, a bitter smile appeared on Zhuowen's face. Su Tianliang was much stronger than LV Yongsheng. He was in existence at the peak of the three-wheel Ultimate Emperor realm. He wasn't someone that LV Yongsheng could contend with right now. After all, there are nearly 10,000 geniuses who have entered the training mountain. The probability of encountering those abnormal top geniuses is still extremely small, and the probability of encountering Su Tianliang is even more pitifully small. However, if you continue to advance, one day you'll encounter LV Yongsheng, Su Tianliang, and the others. Therefore, you must quickly increase your strength. Xiao He had a rare serious expression. Zhuowen's progress was indeed very fast, but it was still insufficient in front of the top geniuses of the 5 super forces. Therefore, if Zhuowen wanted to contend with LV Yongsheng and Su Tianliang, he had to increase his strength as soon as possible. Yes. You're right. Fortunately, I'm only at the 2nd level of the elemental tower. There are endless opportunities here. As long as I don't encounter Su Tianliang in advance, I believe that my cultivation will definitely catch up. Nodding his head, Zhuowen also knew that his shortcoming was that his cultivation was too low. If his cultivation was on par with LV Yongsheng and the others, he was confident that he could definitely defeat them. The training mountain definitely has something that can increase one's cultivation in a short period of time. After all, this is a mountain range that has existed since ancient times. It has been located on the 2nd level of the elemental tower for who knows how many years. It's very mysterious. Xiao He nodded his head. After obtaining the Tyrant Dragon Scale Bone Spear, the tightly shut bronze door on the other side of the hall finally slowly opened. Without hesitation, Zhuowen took a step forward and directly entered the other side of the door. In front of every passage of the training mountain were 10 bronze doors, corresponding to 10 large halls. Only after passing through all 10 halls could a contestant successfully walk out of the training mountain and reach the peak of the training mountain. Then, they would have the qualifications to enter the 3rd level of the elemental tower. The opponents Zhuowen encountered in the next 6 halls weren't very strong. There were 2 Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivators, 3 Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivators, and 1 Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator with 2 Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivators. With Zhuowen's strength, it was naturally very easy for him to deal with these 6 people. Speaking of which, these 6 people's strength couldn't even compare to Ling Xiaodao's. Zhuowen only needed to move his fingers to defeat all his opponents in these 6 rounds. The greater the risk, the greater the opportunity. The opponents in these 6 rounds weren't very strong, so the treasures in the halls weren't particularly precious. However, this was only relative. Every single one of these treasures was worth fighting for outside. It was just that they weren't very useful to Zhuowen. What made Zhuowen feel regretful was that after these 8 rounds, there were no signs of an Emperor Realm body tempering technique. However, Zhuowen wasn't discouraged. The rarity of an Emperor Realm body tempering technique was comparable to a Transcendent Emperor Realm armor technique. It would be strange if it was so easy for him to obtain it. At the same time, Zhuowen used these 8 rounds of competition to constantly accumulate experience and cultivate the energy of the world. After one battle after another, Zhuowen's cultivation increased rapidly. He had actually reached the peak of the Ultimate Emperor Realm. He was only a step away from breaking through to the Ultimate Emperor Realm. Moreover, the boundless astral sword that had been destroyed by the mechanical arrows was basically repaired by Zhuowen using the earth fire and quenching crystal jades. Moreover, the quality of the boundless astral sword had increased by a lot after fusing with thousands of high-grade low-grade spirit treasure arrows. The boundless astral sword had a total of 108 sword-shaped spirit treasures. Among them, there were 36 high-grade spirit treasures and 72 mid-grade spirit treasures. After fusing with the quenching crystal jades and thousands of arrows, the 108 sword-shaped spirit treasures had basically transformed into high-grade spirit treasures. Among them, the 36 core longswords had been upgraded to the level of high-grade supreme spirit treasures. It could be said that they had reached the limit of high-grade spirit treasures. The boundless astral sword was now much more powerful than before. Its strength had increased by at least 50%. Moreover, the impenetrable defense formed by the boundless astral sword was even more abnormal. If he were to encounter the arrow rain mechanism in the second hall again, the boundless astral sword would be more than enough to block it. Moreover, it wouldn't be damaged in the slightest. With the increase in the boundless astral sword strength and Zhuowen's spiritual energy at the initial rank 4 spirit realm, Zhuowen really didn't need to fear a 3-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Moreover, Zhuowen's fire fusion art had also made a slight breakthrough. He was now able to fuse 3 types of earth fire at the same time and create a tricolor inferno. The tricolor inferno's might was indeed extremely terrifying. Whether it was its destructive power or its scorching temperature, it far surpassed the blood flames. Its might was completely capable of severely injuring a second-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. It might even be able to threaten an early-stage 3-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. Unfortunately, after successfully fusing the tricolor inferno, Zhuowen had also attempted to fuse the terrifyingly powerful blood flames into the tricolor inferno. However, the blood flames' might was too terrifying. With Zhuowen's current strength, it was very difficult to completely fuse them. However, it was precisely because of this that Zhuowen was looking forward to the might of the tricolor inferno. Zhuowen had a premonition that if the tricolor inferno was completely fused, its might would very likely be able to severely injure an early-stage 3-wheel ultimate emperor realm cultivator. At that time, even if LV Yongsheng had advanced to the mid-stage of the ultimate emperor realm, Zhuowen wouldn't need to fear him as much. The dark tunnel was like an endless void. It was pitch black, as if there was no end to it. Zhuowen's figure moved forward like a ghost within the tunnel. After 8 rounds of battle and selection, Zhuowen's aura had become even more restrained and profound. Whoosh! At the end of the tunnel, a spacious corridor extended outwards. At the end of the corridor, a solemn silver door stood silently. A majestic and vast aura slowly flowed through the entire corridor. Stopping, Zhuowen raised his head slightly and gazed at the large silver door in front of him. His gaze became extremely serious and fervent. After 8 rounds of elimination, the remaining contestants were all top geniuses. Zhuowen knew that the real battle would begin behind the silver door. Only the contestant who could step past the silver door would be able to break through the final golden door. Only then would he be considered to have successfully passed the trial of the Mountain of Trials. The true battle, huh? I really want to know who's behind this door. With a gentle chuckle, Zhuowen slowly walked along the corridor towards the silver door. As he walked, Zhuowen's aura surged like a raging tide. He was adjusting his aura and state. Thump thump thump. Heavy footsteps slowly rang out in the corridor. As the footsteps grew closer, the terrifying aura that resembled raging waves constantly grew stronger. When Zhuowen was about to arrive before the silver door, his aura had risen to the limit. Power filled his body, causing his clothes to swell. Crack. At this moment, Zhuowen's aura had reached the limit. It flooded the entire corridor like a raging tide. A heavy pressure instantly filled the entire corridor. Chapter 477. 3 drops of essence blood. Zhuowen stepped through the silver door as soon as he opened it. His gaze instantly focused on the center of the hall. The hall was majestic and grand, and had an aura of vicissitudes. However, this didn't attract Zhuowen's attention. His gaze was focused on the center of the hall as soon as he appeared. This was because there was an extremely large silver throne in the center of the hall. A white skeleton actually sat on the throne. This skeleton was extremely peculiar. Its bones were actually silver in color, and it emitted a lustrous silver light in the dim hall. What attracted Zhuowen's attention wasn't the strange skeleton on the throne, but the 3 drops of golden liquid on the skeleton's chest. The 3 drops of golden liquid constantly emitted a terrifying aura, causing countless small spiraling cyclones to form around them. This aura, could it be the blood of an ultimate Emperor realm expert, and an extremely powerful one at that? Zhuowen finally couldn't remain calm as he stared at the 3 drops of golden liquid on the skeleton's chest. His breathing became ragged, and his eyes blazed with a scarlet-red light. This wasn't the first time Zhuowen had seen the blood of an ultimate Emperor realm expert. Back in Broken Rock City, when Ouyang Yuntu and Qiu Chou had brought him to the Blood Swamp, the 9 Extreme Emperor origin pool there had been formed from the blood of an ultimate Emperor realm expert. Moreover, it had been the blood of an ultimate Emperor realm expert. At that time, Zhuowen had soaked in the 9 Extreme Emperor origin pool, allowing him to reach the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm for a short period of time. Moreover, it had allowed Zhuowen to clearly see the path of the Ultimate Emperor realm, allowing him to step into the Ultimate Emperor realm without any hindrance. Speaking of which, this was all thanks to the effects of the 9 Extreme Emperor origin pool. Unfortunately, the 9 Extreme Emperor origin pool in the Blood Swamp was formed from a single drop of essence blood of an Ultimate Emperor realm expert. Moreover, after being diluted by the pool's water in the passage of time, most of its effects had already dissipated. Back then, Zhuowen, Ouyang Hanxian, and Ouyang Ruoli had all entered the 9-fold royal origin pool together. Because of that, Zhuowen had only advanced to the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. However, things were different now. The silver skeleton before them was definitely an Ultimate Emperor realm expert, and those 3 drops of blood were definitely the blood essence of an Ultimate Emperor realm expert. Such blood essence was fatally tempting to an Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. This was because Zhuowen would be able to break through again in a short amount of time once he absorbed this blood essence. It was entirely possible for him to reach the peak of the second wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. This thing must be obtained, no matter what. At this moment, Zhuowen's gaze had become extremely sharp. The importance of the essence blood of an ultimate emperor was self-evident. It could increase his strength by the greatest amount in the shortest amount of time possible, so he had to obtain these 3 drops of essence blood no matter what. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Zhuowen tilted his head and looked at the other silver door. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit. No matter who it was, he, Zhuowen, had to win. Boom! Countless silver fragments flew into the air. The silver door on the other side shattered, and a slender figure shot out from the countless silver fragments. With a few leaps, he landed gracefully in the hall. When Zhuowen saw this figure, he was stunned. Then, he frowned slightly and muttered, "I never thought it would be you, haha. Are you surprised to see me, Zhuowen?" A sinister voice slowly rang out. The figure raised his head slightly and stared coldly at Zhuowen. A trace of impatience appeared on his face. "No. It's just a coincidence. However, I'm actually relieved to see you here, because I have a 100% chance of winning against you. Don't you think so, the third heir of the house of Marquis Qin, Lu Yuanhua?" Shaking his head, Zhuowen smiled. The person who had appeared before him was actually the Lu Yuanhua who had always wanted to kill Zhuowen. Zhuowen had originally thought that he wouldn't encounter this Lu Yuanhua. He never thought that he would meet his mortal enemy in the 9th round. Creak. Veins bulged on Lu Yuanhua's forehead when he heard that. He glared at Zhuowen with extreme anger and coldness. He said, "Zhuowen, you're still as arrogant as ever. Do you really think you can challenge me just because you've made it into the training mountains? You'll regret it when I see it." However, Zhuowen shook his head. He had clearly seen the aura within Lu Yuanhua's body as soon as he had appeared. He had actually reached the late stage of the second wheel. Although Lu Yuanhua's cultivation had exceeded his expectations, Zhuowen didn't feel threatened at all. At this moment, Lu Yuanhua's heart was filled with delight. He had originally thought that he wouldn't encounter Zhuowen in the training mountains. He never thought that enemies would meet on a narrow road. He just had to meet Zhuowen at a time like this. This Zhuowen's cultivation has truly been fast. He's actually reached the mid-stage of the second wheel. However, this bit of strength is still not enough to deal with me. It's finally time for me to take revenge. I'm going to directly cripple this Zhuowen. If I have the chance, it'll be best if I eliminate him in this hall. Lu Yuanhua's gaze became even colder when he thought of this. His face was filled with savage killing intent as he recalled the various scenes in the ancient dwelling. The fury in Lu Yuanhua's heart was like an erupting volcano that constantly rose up. Zhuowen. This is truly a godsend. You're dead for sure today. Lu Yuanhua didn't waste any more words. He stomped his foot and a terrifying aura flowed out from his body without restraint. Boundless astral winds filled the surface of his body. Lu Yuanhua's gaze calmed down as he stared coldly at Zhuowen. Although his hatred for Zhuowen had reached an extreme level, he wouldn't underestimate his opponent because of this. He wanted to use a thunderous method to directly kill Zhuowen. He wanted to make Zhuowen regret offending him and disobeying him. Lu Yuanhua formed a series of complicated seals between his hands. Powerful yuan power condensed between his hands to an extremely terrifying degree. Soon after, the void behind Lu Yuanhua suddenly tore open a gigantic black hole that was several hundred meters wide. A gigantic palm that was several hundred meters wide suddenly stretched out from the vast black hole. The palm was extremely lifelike, as if it was the palm of a real person. Zhuowen could even see extremely clear palm lines on the surface of the palm. An aura that made one feel awe and reverence suddenly overflowed from the gigantic palm. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and a trace of caution appeared on his face. Lu Yuanhua should be using the extremely famous emperor-grade armor technique of the House of Marquis Qin, the mountain-splitting steel palm. Back in the Mortal Pavilion, Zhuowen was still a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm expert while Lu Yuanhua was already a first-will Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. At that time, Lu Yuanhua wanted to use this technique to deal with Zhuowen. However, he was stopped by LV Yongsheng who had rushed over. Zhuowen was extremely afraid of the mountain-splitting steel palm back then. With his strength back then, it was really difficult for him to withstand this technique. However, it was different now. Although Zhuowen was solemn, it wasn't to the extent that he was afraid of it. Looking at the gigantic palm in the sky, Zhuowen looked at his own hands. He suddenly realized that he had unknowingly become so strong. The things that he was afraid of before, he was no longer afraid of. Zhuowen. Die. Lu Yuanhua laughed crazily. He wanted to see Zhuowen turn into a bloody pulp under the bombardment of the mountain-splitting steel palm. That kind of scene would be extremely beautiful. However, Zhuowen shook his head. His gaze was as calm as water from beginning to end. Unknowingly, he realized that the Lu Yuanhua in front of him, whom he was afraid of before, was extremely laughable at this moment. Perhaps this was the feeling after standing at a certain height. Boom! The gigantic, mountain-splitting steel palm was extremely fast. It was as if a 10,000 zhang tall mountain was crashing down. In an instant, it had arrived a few zhang above Zhuowen's head. In just a breath's time, the mountain-splitting steel palm would directly crush Zhuowen into dust. Lu Yuanhua, this little bit of strength is simply not enough to deal with me. So, break for me. Zhuowen's clear voice suddenly rang out. Shortly after, countless bloody flames burst out, covering the sky and directly enveloping the mountain-splitting steel palm that was crashing down. Gotcha! An inconceivable scene unfolded before Lu Yuanhua's eyes. He saw the mountain-splitting steel palm that he was most proud of actually crumble inch by inch under the endless bloody flames. In the end, it was annihilated by the endless bloody flames. The bloody flames grew more and more vigorous and violent, practically turning the entire hall into a sea of bloody flames. Blazing heat and terrifying destructive power spread out, causing countless stone pillars around the hall to collapse. Lu Yuanhua stared blankly at the countless bloody flames in front of him. His mouth was so wide open that an egg could be stuffed inside. He really didn't expect that his mountain-splitting steel palm would be broken just like that. Moreover, Zhuowen didn't seem to be using any effort at all. Thump! Thump! Crisp footsteps rang out as the endless bloody flames split open a path in the middle. A slender figure slowly walked out. Zhuowen was surrounded by endless bloody flames as he quietly walked towards Lu Yuanhua in front of him. His gaze was as calm as still water. How is this possible? The mountain-splitting steel palm actually didn't have any effect on you. You're clearly just an extreme king realm cultivator with 2 wheels. How can you possess such powerful strength? The madness in Lu Yuanhua's eyes gradually dissipated, replaced by a deep sense of fear. When did this Zhuowen become so terrifying? Lu Yuanhua, you're too shallow. Therefore, the one who's going to die now isn't me, but you. Zhuowen's words were emotionless and extremely cold. After he finished speaking, his entire body merged into the bloody flames. In the next instant, he was already behind Lu Yuanhua. Damn it! You're not qualified to kill me. Lu Yuanhua also calmed down. He took out an earth-rank spiritual treasure longsword from his Qiankuan pouch. With a shake of his right hand, he directly stabbed towards Zhuowen behind him. Low-grade earth-rank spiritual treasures are useless against me. Break for me. Zhuowen twisted his right hand and wrapped it around the longsword like a snake. His right hand suddenly exerted force and directly knocked the longsword away. Following that, his left hand formed a claw and smashed towards Lu Yuanhua's back. Puchi. Lu Yuanhua's eyes widened as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body flew backwards and rolled on the ground for dozens of meters before coming to a stop. Whoosh! Chapter 478. The Descent of the Blood Demon. Lu Yuanhua grunted and spat out another mouthful of blood. His face was filled with resentment and resentment. He never thought that he would be trampled beneath Zhuowen's feet again. Why? Why? I've clearly worked so hard to the point of risking my life. Why am I still defeated? Just why? Lu Yuanhua's eyes were bloodshot and his face was filled with madness. He was unwilling to accept this, extremely unwilling. His repeated defeats at Zhuowen's hands made Lu Yuanhua extremely sullen. Sizzle. Sizzle. The sound of burning flames slowly rang out. The blood on Lu Yuanhua's body began to thicken. Moreover, an even greater amount of blood was secreted from Lu Yuanhua's body, covering his entire body. He seemed to have turned into a man of blood. Zhuowen had also noticed Lu Yuanhua's strange state. He frowned slightly. The Lu Yuanhua's current state was extremely strange. Boom! Countless strands of bloody energy suddenly erupted. Shockwaves swept out and energy overflowed in all directions. Zhuowen was forced back by this explosive force. He stared solemnly at Lu Yuanhua, who was surrounded by countless strands of bloody energy. Zhuowen. I've said it before. I won't fail again. Even if I die, I won't allow myself to fail. Lu Yuanhua slowly stood up amidst the bloody energy. At this moment, he had basically become a man of blood. The viscous blood slowly flowed through his body, emitting a somewhat disgusting gurgling sound. What secret technique is this? Zhuowen's expression finally changed because he discovered that Lu Yuanhua's aura was rapidly increasing. It instantly surpassed the late stage of the second wheel and reached the peak of the second wheel. Ha! This is our House of Marquis Qin's unique forbidden technique, the Descent of the Blood Demon. It uses one's own blood essence as a guide to summon the soul of an ancient blood demon into one's body and obtain inconceivable power. Zhuowen, in order to kill you this time, I specially went to the mansion's library to find such a forbidden technique. Lu Yuanhua's voice had become hoarse and terrifying. He sounded like an evil spirit from the 9 hells. Just his voice alone was enough to scare away many timid cultivators. The descent of the blood demon? Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. Although he didn't know how powerful the descent of the blood demon was Qinyu, since it was a forbidden technique, its power. Last time, Su Liang's dark shadow finger was also a forbidden technique. Its power was so strong that even Zhuowen was extremely afraid of it. If it wasn't for his level 4 initial mental power, Zhuowen would not have been able to do anything to Su Liang. Roar! When the blood on Lu Yuanhua's body reached its thickest, a huge hole suddenly appeared in the void behind him. An enormous blood shadow that seemed capable of shaking the heavens and earth slowly walked out from the other side of the void. It pulled with its mountain-like hands, directly tearing the surrounding void apart. Then, the shadow that was hundreds of feet tall finally walked into the main hall. This blood figure was covered in blood from head to toe. Its huge head had no facial features, only a pair of ferocious and terrifying blood-red eyes, which contained brutality and killing intent. This was the terrifying blood demon of ancient times. Soul of the blood demon, descend upon my body. My blood essence shall be your meal. Lu Yuanhua shouted. The enormous blood demon in the void roared excitedly and shrank until it was the size of an ordinary person. Then, with a whoosh, it sank into Lu Yuanhua's body. Boom! LV Yuanhua let out a painful groan. Both of his eyes immediately turned incomparably scarlet, and the surrounding bloody aura became extremely dense. Like a hurricane, it revolved around his body. A powerful aura that could suppress a mountain gushed out, causing the surrounding hall to tremble. On the platform at the top of the mountain, when Lu Yuanhua used the blood demon's descent, it immediately attracted everyone's attention. The city lords who were originally focused on the other screens also focused their attention on the main hall where Lu Yuanhua and Zhuowen were. That's the blood demon's descent. It's an extremely terrifying forbidden technique of the House of Marquis Qin. I didn't expect Lu Yuanhua to be willing to use such a forbidden technique that harms others and harms himself. Looks like Lu Yuanhua doesn't want to lose at all. I thought that there would be no suspense in this battle, but I never thought that Lu Yuanhua would have such a trick up his sleeve. I wonder who will win in the end. I'm afraid that Lu Yuanhua might win. Look at his aura, it's not any weaker than the peak of the ultimate emperor realm. His strength far surpasses Ling Tian City's Ling Xiaodao. Although Zhuowen was able to defeat Ling Xiaodao, he's not a match for Lu Yuanhua. On the platform, countless cries sounded out. Everyone was shocked by the forbidden technique that Lu Yuanhua had used, and the person who was most shocked was Lu Nantian. Creak. That's simply nonsense. That child Yuanhua is playing with fire. He actually dares to use such a forbidden technique that harms others and harms himself. Who gave him the blood demon's descent forbidden technique? Lu Nantian's expression was extremely unsightly. After seeing Lu Yuanhua use the blood demon's descent forbidden technique, he had inwardly cursed. However, there was nothing he could do to stop it. After all, there was nothing he could do about what was happening in the Trial Mountain. As the owner of the House of Marquis Qin, he naturally knew about the blood demon's descent forbidden technique. In order to activate this forbidden technique, one had to sacrifice almost half of one's essence blood to summon the ancient blood demon's soul and fuse it into one's body, allowing one to obtain such a terrifying forbidden technique. However, the side effects of this forbidden technique were extremely terrifying. After the forbidden technique ended, almost half of one's essence blood would be lost. Moreover, there was an extremely high chance that one's life would be in danger. This forbidden technique was basically not worth using unless it was a matter of life and death. However, what made Lu Nantian angry was that this was clearly just a competition in the Trial Mountain. In order to obtain victory, Lu Yuanhua had actually used such a forbidden technique. This caused Lu Nanshan's expression to become extremely unsightly. "Brother Lu, you should be clear about Yuanhua's temperament. He's extremely stubborn and won't easily admit defeat. Although the side effects of the Blood Demon's Descent forbidden technique are extremely terrifying, if Lu Yuanhua is treated in time before he collapses, there won't be any side effects," the master of the meteorite said softly. "AI. That's all we can do. It looks like both of them will have to directly withdraw from the trial mountain after this battle." Lu Nantian sighed softly and shook his head somewhat helplessly. He knew that since Lu Yuanhua had used the Blood Demon's Descent forbidden technique, then no matter how heaven-defying Zhuowen was, it wasn't very likely that he would be a match for Lu Yuanhua. After all, Lu Yuanhua had the support of the Blood Demon's Descent forbidden technique. From a certain perspective, he was even stronger than an ordinary peak second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He should be comparable to an early-stage third-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Although Zhuowen had domineeringly defeated the late-stage second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator Ling Xiaodao, Lu Yuanhua had the support of the Blood Demon's Descent forbidden technique and was far more terrifying than Ling Xiaodao. Zhuowen would only be eliminated in this battle. After using the Blood Demon's Descent forbidden technique, Lu Yuanhua wouldn't be able to fight in the slightest. That was why Lu Nantian had said that both of them would directly withdraw from the trial mountain after this battle. Xian Yuanli, Qin Nye, and Su Chang all nodded in agreement. They also didn't think that Zhuowen could defeat the current Lu Yuanhua. However, the three of them felt rather sorry for Zhuowen in their hearts. It should have been a battle where victory was within their grasp, but who would have thought that such an unforeseen event would occur? They couldn't help but feel rather regretful. In the crowd, Guyu Tian, Chiu Chou, and Ouyang Yuntu's expressions were extremely ugly. They'd originally thought that Zhuowen would win this battle in the bag, but who would have thought that Lu Yuanhua would actually use a forbidden technique like the Blood Demon's Descent forbidden technique to obtain victory. This Lu Yuanhua really suits my taste. Hee, let's fight. It'd be best if we beat this Zhuowen to death. It'll be revenge for Lu Che and the other two, the everlasting old man in the crowd sneered as he watched everything that was happening on the screen. In the hall, Lu Yuanhua had finally completely merged with the Blood Demon's soul. His scarlet eyes coldly stared at Zhuowen as he said, "Zhuowen, you forced me to use the Blood Demon's Descent forbidden technique. Today, I'll definitely kill you." With that, Lu Yuanhua took a step forward. His entire body was wrapped in a terrifying bloody aura. He directly turned into a dense bloody shadow and shot towards Zhuowen. He was as fast as lightning, arriving in front of Zhuowen in the blink of an eye. Boom! A huge and terrifying bloody fist whistled through the air. It carried an aura that could crush everything as it surged forward. Zhuowen's expression became extremely grave. Lu Yuanhua's strength had increased by too much. He couldn't be careless. He silently mobilized all the bloody flames in his body and gathered them in his right hand as he also punched out. Boom! The bloody flames and bloody aura mixed together and shot out an intense collision. Shockwaves rolled, the space collapsed, the air was torn apart, and rocks were swept away. After a short moment, Zhuowen let out a muffled groan and retreated. His gaze was extremely gloomy. This Lu Yuanhua's strength and speed were too terrifying. "Zhuowen, you're not my opponent right now. It's better for you to die." Lv Yuanhua laughed uproariously. He hadn't retreated at all during the exchange of blows earlier. His confidence multiplied, and with a stomp of his foot, he once again lunged towards Zhuowen. He wanted to ruthlessly beat Zhuowen to death in this great hall. "You're courting death. Do you think you can do anything to me just because you've used a forbidden technique? Since you insist on seeking death, I'll let you have a good look at my true strength." At this moment, Lu Yuanhua's strength had far surpassed that of a peak second-will Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He was probably comparable to a peak third-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. If he didn't use his full strength now, he really wouldn't be able to do anything to Lu Yuanhua. With that, Zhuowen stomped his foot and the Naiwan Palace between his eyebrows began to spin wildly. Countless strands of mental energy that seemed almost tangible spread out like a surging tide, enveloping the entire hall. Boom! As soon as he released his mental energy, the entire hall was filled with an extremely terrifying pressure. Zhuowen slowly floated up into the air. He slapped his Qianquan bag and countless sword lights flickered. Long swords that emitted a cold light revolved around Zhuowen's body. At this moment, Lu Yuanhua's attacks came one after another. Countless strands of bloody aura accompanied by terrifying pressure slammed into Zhuowen's body. Boom! With a flash of sword light, the boundless sword intent turned into an impenetrable wall in front of Zhuowen. With a clang, Lu Yuanhua was actually forced back dozens of steps. He stared at Zhuowen in shock. What powerful mental energy! This mental energy! Are you already a grade 4 Arcana Master? Chapter 479. Absorbing blood essence. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were cold. Under the cover of his mental power, he floated in the air and looked down at Lu Yuanhua like a high and mighty king. Lu Yuanhua. I've said it before. The gap between you and me will only get bigger and bigger. It won't shrink. So, get defeated. After saying that, Zhuowen lightly stepped on the ground and waved his right hand. Countless sword lights flickered around him and condensed in the air, forming a huge sword that was a few hundred feet long. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens as it descended from the sky. Flying sword controlling slash. An indifferent voice rang out. The gigantic sword in the air let out an earth-shattering buzzing sound. The body of the sword trembled, and like a gigantic mountain, it smashed down towards Lv Yuanhua below with a rumbling sound, breaking through the air. The flying sword controlling slash was the first move of the everlasting sword aura. Compared to the other two moves, it was slightly lacking. However, after the everlasting sword aura was upgraded, its power had increased by a lot. It was comparable to the second move of the everlasting sword aura before it was upgraded. Lu Yuanhua's expression changed slightly. The huge sword that Zhuowen had casually condensed gave him a strong sense of danger. It was as if he wasn't facing a sword, but a huge mountain. Blood Demon Death Hand. Lu Yuanhua stepped on the ground and boundless blood qi enveloped him. He stretched out his right hand and the dense blood qi immediately condensed into a bloody hand that was a few hundred feet long. The nauseating smell of blood continued to rise. Boom! Countless rays of sword light surrounded the giant sword and instantly descended upon the bloody hand. Countless explosions rang out continuously as the surrounding space collapsed, forming countless vortexes and black holes. Zhuowen pinched the sword fingers on his right hand and the huge sword trembled in the air. Countless sword lights spread out and directly shattered the bloody hand. It then smashed down towards Lu Yuanhua with irresistible force. Blood Demon Soul Appear. Lv Yuanhua's face was gloomy to the extreme. His hands quickly formed a seal, and the bloody aura around him became more and more intense, forming a monstrous sea of blood. Behind him, the shadow of a blood demon that could shake heaven and earth formed in the void. Awu! The blood demon raised his head and roared. His mountain-like bloody hand reached out and grabbed the giant sword. With a loud boom, the blood demon caught the giant sword in his hand. Explode! Zhuowen did not hold back at all. The moment the giant sword was grabbed by the blood demon, he swept up the mental strength in his mud pill palace between his eyebrows and controlled the giant sword to explode. Rumble! An earth-shattering boom rang out as the huge sword turned into countless sword rays and exploded. The entire sky was filled with dazzling sword rays that flickered and spread out, directly blowing up the blood demon's huge right arm into countless blood foam. Lv Yuanhua's face was incomparably pale. However, he still gritted his teeth and controlled the blood demon, which had already lost an arm, to continue rushing toward Zhuo Wen. The remaining arm fearlessly smashed down on Zhuo Wen's head. Boundless sword aura, falling flower wave breaking kill. Once again, he pinched the sword sign, and the boundless sword force turned into countless sword rays. The sword rays swept across the void like withered petals. As the sword rays flickered, countless sword rays burst out, turning into monstrous waves that rolled over. Under the effect of the sword rays swept across the sky like a huge wave wrapped in petals and blasted towards the blood demon. Boom! 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 The sword rays were like a water vortex that directly sucked in the blood demon's left arm. The powerful force of the vortex crushed the remaining arm of the blood demon. Moreover, the force of the vortex did not decrease as it spread around the blood demon's body. In 2 breaths of time, the blood demon's huge body was turned into countless blood foam under the powerful force of the sword rays. Blood foam flew everywhere, and the entire hall seemed to be covered in a bloody rain. The entire hall was shrouded in the color of blood. Puchi. Lu Yuanhua's face was deathly pale. The blood demon's soul was closely related to him. At this moment, the blood demon's shadow was crushed. His mind shook as he suffered a huge backlash. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. His face was filled with defeat. I lost. I still lost in the end. While flying, Lu Yuanhua glanced at the figure not far away with a complicated expression. The corner of his mouth was filled with bitterness. He hadn't expected that he would still be defeated by Zhuowen after painstakingly cultivating for 2 years and even using a secret technique like the blood demon's descent. At this moment, Lu Yuanhua thought of many things. He thought of the youth that could only look up to him in Vine Armor City. He thought of the youth that he hadn't paid attention to in the ancient immortal cave. He thought of the youth that had stepped on him outside the ancient immortal cave. He also thought of the figure that was getting further and further away from him. At this moment, Lu Yuanhua finally discovered that while he had indeed made progress in the past 2 years, Zhuowen had also made progress. Moreover, Zhuowen's progress was much faster than his own. The gap between the two of them had become even greater. With a soft sigh, Lv Yuanhua finally accepted reality. With a bitter laugh, he beckoned with his right hand and tossed the heavenly class imprint in his palm to Zhuowen. Soon after, he disappeared from the large hall under a light pillar. Zhuowen. You are indeed very powerful, but there are many people stronger than you in the Origin Chi Tower. Just you wait. You will eventually meet my second brother, Lv Yongsheng. He will settle this debt with you. The moment Lv Yuanhua disappeared, his somewhat crazy and ferocious voice reverberated throughout the entire great hall. With a wave of his right hand, he caught the heaven rank imprint thrown by Lu Yuanhua. Zhuowen looked at the Lu Yuanhua disappearing into the pillar of light and narrowed his eyes. He sneered, you ran pretty fast, but unfortunately, I'm not afraid of Lv Yongsheng. If I really did meet Lv Yongsheng, it's hard to say who would win. Zhuowen's current strength was indeed extremely powerful. With his mental strength at the 4th level, he was no weaker than an early-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Coupled with the trump cards he had, Zhuowen believed that he wouldn't be afraid of a mid-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Thinking of this, Zhuowen's gaze shifted slightly and landed on the 3 drops of essence blood in the chest of the skeleton sitting on the throne in the center of the hall. His eyes were immediately filled with fanaticism. This was the essence blood of a genuine Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. It was self-evident how helpful it would be to him. With a light wave of his right hand, Zhuowen directly sent Lu Yuanhua's heaven rank imprint into the restriction around the throne. Ripples spread out in a ring shape and soon dissipated in the air. Clearly, the restriction had been broken. Whoosh! In an instant, Zhuowen arrived on the throne. He didn't take the initiative to remove the 3 drops of essence blood from the skeleton's chest. Instead, he looked at the skeleton on the throne with a solemn and dignified expression. This is a supreme ultimate emperor realm cultivator, but he still died so miserably in the end. After his death, he couldn't even be buried. Instead, he was placed on this throne and used by someone else to store his essence blood. Speaking of which, this senior is quite a pitiful person. The expert on the throne was an overlord like the master of Meteorite Garden, Xian Yuanli, and a few other overlords. Now that he had died in such a miserable state, Zhuowen couldn't help but feel sad for him. With a soft sigh, Zhuowen lifted the hem of his pants with his right hand and knelt on one knee. He respectfully kowtowed to the throne and said with a serious expression, "The 3 drops of essence blood belong to Senior. This junior has taken the liberty to come and take them. If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me." After kowtowing, Zhuowen formed a seal with his right hand and reached into the skeleton's chest. With a gentle gesture, he drew the 3 drops of essence blood into his palm. After taking the 3 drops of essence blood, Zhuowen's gaze was quite fervent. However, he still kowtowed to the skeleton again seriously and said, "Zhuowen will never forget the kindness of giving you this blood. I will definitely remember it in my heart in the future." However, what Zhuowen didn't see was that after he kowtowed, an imperceptible light actually flashed through the skeleton's empty eyes. Then, it actually turned into dust and disappeared from the throne. Once the skeleton disappeared, Zhuowen slowly stood up. However, what he didn't see was that the 3 drops of essence blood in his palm had begun to flicker with a strange golden light. Whoosh! 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 3 whooshing sounds rang out. Zhuowen was startled. Immediately, he felt a chill in his chest. Then, he discovered that the 3 drops of essence blood in his palm had all entered his chest on their own. What's going on? Why did the 3 drops of essence blood enter my body on their own? Zhuowen was instantly shocked when he felt the icy coldness on his chest, and his gaze was filled with surprise and bewilderment. Aren't these 3 drops of blood essence too strange? I haven't even intended to use them, yet they actually bore into my body by themselves. Kid! Don't worry, these 3 drops of essence blood should have integrated into your body on their own. Feel the situation in your body carefully and you will know how much benefit you have received. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded. Hearing this, Zhuowen hurriedly closed his eyes and felt the changes in his body. Sure enough, he discovered that extremely pure golden blood was continuously gushing out from his heart. This golden blood spread from his heart to his entire body, causing Zhuowen's entire body to feel extremely comfortable and warm. It was as if he was in a hot spring. This kid is really lucky. If these 3 drops of essence blood were to be refined on their own, I'm afraid that it would take a lot of time. However, now that the essence blood has automatically come to him, Zhuowen probably doesn't even need to refine it to absorb the surging energy within the essence blood. Xiao Hei, who was in his sea of consciousness, was very clear about the changes in Zhuowen's body. After the 3 drops of essence blood entered Zhuowen's heart, they used the power of his heartbeat to integrate into his blood, allowing Zhuowen to completely absorb the rich energy within the essence blood. Looks like this kid really hit it by accident. I'm afraid that the skeleton on the throne still has a trace of the original owner's consciousness. This kid's respectful attitude earlier has very likely left a good impression with the original owner of the essence blood. That's why the essence blood has voluntarily integrated into Zhuowen's blood. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with envy. Even he was extremely envious of Zhuowen's good luck. He knew that once Zhuowen completely absorbed the energy within the 3 drops of essence blood, his cultivation would rise to the peak of the 2nd wheel of the ultimate emperor realm at the very least. Of course, if he was lucky, he might even be able to undergo 3 heavenly tribulations in advance and advance to the 3rd wheel of the ultimate emperor realm. We'll probably have to wait until he completely absorbs the energy within the essence blood before we know what level this kid will reach. Chapter 480. Generous Conditions. Thump. 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 A sound that sounded like a heartbeat slowly rang out in the deep and spacious hall. A slender and lonely figure sat cross-legged in the center of the hall, surrounded by golden energy. Just now, the sound of a heartbeat had come from this golden energy. At this moment, Zhuowen's eyes were tightly shut. The golden energy around him pulsed rhythmically, and the aura in Zhuowen's body grew at a rate visible to the naked eye. Boom! When this aura reached its peak, a slight explosion suddenly sounded. Then, a wave of air took the shape of a ring, with Zhuowen as the center, and suddenly spread out, sweeping up the dust on the ground. The blood essence of a ninth wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator is truly miraculous. It's only been an hour, but this kid has already broken through to the advanced second wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm. Moreover, from the looks of it, he should be able to break through to the peak of the second wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm. Xiao He, who was in Zhuowen's consciousness, was constantly paying attention to Zhuowen's situation. At this moment, when he saw such a wild and ferocious aura erupting from Zhuowen's body, he nodded in satisfaction. As expected, before Xiao He could finish speaking, the aura in Zhuowen's body grew explosively once again, like a rainbow piercing through the sun. Just as Zhuowen was sitting cross-legged in the hall, absorbing the energy from the 3 drops of blood essence, the top of the training mountain seemed to have exploded. The entire platform was extremely noisy, and an uproar could be heard incessantly. This was especially true when the screen of light showed Zhuowen's mental energy that had reached the initial 4th grade. The scene of him defeating the blood demon in a clean and efficient manner was deeply imprinted in everyone's minds. Heavens! This Zhuowen's mental energy has reached the 4th grade. He's definitely a 4th grade Arcana Master. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to unleash the might of a 4th grade origin array. Didn't you see how the blood demon summoned by Lu Yuanhua couldn't resist at all? Yeah. After using the blood demon's descent, Lu Yuanhua's aura skyrocketed to the peak of the second wheel of the Ultimate Emperor Realm. Coupled with the terrifying blood demon, he shouldn't be afraid of a cultivator who'd just broken through to the 3rd wheel of the Ultimate Emperor Realm. But now, he's been defeated. Clearly, Zhuowen is a 4th wheel Arcana Master. At this moment, the entire platform went crazy. It wasn't that they hadn't seen a rank 4 Arcana Master before, but they had never seen one as young as Zhuowen. Moreover, Zhuowen was a 2nd wheel mid-Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. In other words, Zhuowen was a dual cultivator of spiritual energy and origin energy. Moreover, he had cultivated both to such a terrifying level. What kind of talent did he need to be able to cultivate both spiritual energy and origin energy to such a high level? Lu Nantian, the master of the meteorite, and the others who stood at the front of the group were all shocked. They hadn't expected Zhuowen to be a rank 4 Arcana Master. After all, none of the 5 superpowers had a single rank 4 Arcana Master. A rank 4 Arcana Master had an extremely esteemed status in the Azure Mystic Empire. Although he couldn't compare to the 5 of them, he wasn't someone they could casually offend. This Zhuowen is truly a monster. I originally thought that he was only a martial arts genius. I didn't expect his spiritual energy cultivation to be so profound. This kid needs to enter the house of Marquis Qin to be able to unleash his full potential. Lu Nantian could no longer remain calm. He stared at Zhuowen on the screen with bright eyes, his hands trembling unconsciously. This Zhuowen had truly exceeded his expectations time and time again. He absolutely couldn't let go of such a monster. The master of the meteorite, Qin Nye, Su Chang, and Xianyuan Li also stared fixedly at Zhuowen's figure on the screen. They didn't care that Zhuowen was a martial arts genius. After all, although it was rare for someone to reach the 2nd wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm at Zhuowen's age, there were still quite a few of them in their respective superpowers. However, it was extremely rare for someone to reach the lower tier of the 4th realm of spiritual energy at Zhuowen's age. They had never seen such a young rank 4 Arcana Master. Brother Lu, you're wrong. Although the house of Marquis Qin is powerful, it's not necessarily suitable for Zhuowen. The number of arcana masters in our Jade Lady Astral Court is much greater than that of your house of Marquis Qin. In terms of spiritual energy, we're much stronger than you. It's right for Zhuowen to enter our Jade Lady Astral Court. The master of the meteorite was no longer silent. Although she didn't care much about Zhuowen at first, now that Zhuowen had displayed his spiritual energy of the fourth realm, she couldn't wait to get Zhuowen into her Jade Lady Astral Court. Sister Yunxing, you're not being kind. Your Jade Lady Astral Court basically accepts women. I'm afraid it's not suitable for Zhuowen to enter your Jade Lady Astral Court. It's right for him to come to our house of Marquis of Baichuan, the short and fat Su Chang said with a smile. Su Chang's smile was quite heartless, but he didn't know that his second son was killed by Zhuowen. If he knew, he probably wouldn't be smiling now. The limitless sword aura that Zhuowen used just now is a sword Dao. Our Imperial Sword School is blessed by the heavens when it comes to sword Dao. Zhuowen will only be able to develop best if he enters our Imperial Sword School. The elegant Xian Yuanli couldn't help but speak. He was very interested in Zhuowen. Now that Zhuowen was a fourth realm arcana master, he didn't want to miss out on such a genius, lest he regret it in the future. Just like that, the five magnates kept arguing in front of the group about who Zhuowen should belong to. Zhuowen's identity as a fourth realm arcana master was enough to make any forced rule and fight over him. Guyu Tian, who was in the middle of the crowd, felt like he was in a dream. He didn't expect Zhuowen to be a fourth realm arcana master. This was really beyond his expectations. Lord Gu. Congratulations, congratulations. I didn't think that such a monstrous genius would appear in Vine Armor City. It looks like there's hope for Vine Armor City to rise again. After this Origin Chi Tower battle, even if Zhuowen doesn't get a good ranking, he'll probably be favored by the five superpowers. The time for Vine Armor City to soar has arrived. Lord Gu, after we return, Vine Armor City must cooperate with us more. While Guyu Tian was immersed in shock, the city lords of the four factions were eagerly trying to curry favor with Guyu Tian. Among them, there was no lack of city lords from high-ranking cities. They all knew that once Zhuowen revealed his identity as a fourth realm arcana master, Vine Armor City's status would undoubtedly soar in a short period of time. This was because they were well aware of the status of a fourth realm arcana master in the Qing Xian Empire. It could be said that even if Zhuowen failed in the Origin Chi Tower battle, he would still be valued and fought over by the five superpowers. This was because fourth realm arcana masters were just too rare, and one as young as Zhuowen was even rarer. Feeling the envious and fervent gazes of the surrounding city lords, Guyu Tian only felt that his body was as light as a feather. One must know that he was merely the city lord of a low-grade city, and in the entire platform, his status was the lowest. Now that he saw the city lords around him, whose status and reputation were above his, all smiling and trying to curry favor with him, Guyu Tian naturally felt like it was unreal. He even thought that he was dreaming. Are you the city lord of Vine Armor City, Guyu Tian? Suddenly, a deep voice rang out. Immediately, the originally noisy crowd quieted down. Then, the dense crowd consciously parted to form a path. Lu Nantian, the master of the meteorite, and the other leaders of the five superpowers slowly walked over. Looks like Vine Armor City is really going to prosper. Even the five lords of the five superpowers have personally come. They clearly intend to recruit that Zhuowen. Nonsense. That Zhuowen isn't even 20 years old, and he's already a fourth realm arcana master. How many people in the Qing Xian Empire have such a talent for spiritual power? If I wasn't an idiot, I would naturally try my best to rope in such a monstrous genius. You're right. I just don't know how the city lord of Vine Armor City, Guyu Tian, will respond to the five lords' invitation. Seeing Lu Nantian's group of five walk over, the surrounding crowd immediately began to whisper to each other. They looked at Guyu Tian with envy. If their city could also have a monstrous genius like Zhuowen, then their city would definitely benefit greatly. Seeing Lu Nanshan's group of 5 walk over, Gu Tian trembled all over. He hurriedly bowed respectfully before Lu Nantian and said, "This lowly one is Gu Tian. May I ask what business you have with me, Marquis Lu?" At this moment, Gu Tian was extremely nervous. Lu Nanshan's group of 5 represented the peak experts of Muqin County. Their status was revered, and they were powerful. Even the city lords of superpowers would have to lower their heads and be respectful before people like them, yet they were being so courteous to him right now. No need to be so courteous. You should be aware of the reason why I have come here this time around. Your Vine Armor City has taught an outstanding genius. A genius like this deserves better resources. If you agree to let Zhuowen join our House of Marquis Qin, Lu Nantian, promise to turn your Vine Armor City into a super city. I will also give you 5 King Tier armor skills, 5 Earth Tier spirit treasures, and all the resources you need. Lu Nantian patted Gu Tian's shoulder very enthusiastically and stated a condition that no one could refuse. Gasp! When Lu Nanshan's words left his mouth, it naturally caused countless people in the surroundings to suck in a breath of cold air. Their gazes were blazing as they looked at the somewhat uneasy Gu Tian. At this moment, Gu Tian was also shocked by Lu Nanshan's extremely generous conditions. As the city lord of Vine Armor City, Gu Tian really couldn't think of how he could refuse such a condition. Even Qiu Chou and Ouyang Yintu beside him were shocked speechless. Lu Nantian was truly bold. He had actually proposed to turn Vine Armor City into a super city, and he would even give away 5 King Tier armor skills and 5 Earth Tier spirit treasures. Emperor Tier armor skills and Earth Tier spiritual treasures were not something that could be bought from a street stall. Even some super cities might not necessarily have these things. Even if they did, they would at most have 1 or 2 Emperor Tier armor skills and Earth Tier spiritual treasures. But now, LV Nantian had directly said that he would give away 5 Emperor Tier armor skills and 5 Earth Tier spiritual treasures. Chapter 481. Against LV Yongsheng, Gu Tian was so shocked that he couldn't speak. He could only stare at Lu Nantian in front of him with excitement. Lu Nanshan's offer was so generous that he couldn't think of any reason to reject it. The master of the meteorite, Xian Yuanli, Su Chang, and Qin Ye's expressions changed. They didn't expect Lu Nantian to be so bold as to give away 5 Emperor-grade armor skills, 5 Earth-grade spirit treasures, and turn Vine Armor City into a super city. They could also offer such conditions, but once they did, the forces they belonged to would definitely suffer great losses. Brother LV. You're really bold. You're willing to make such an offer just to get Zhuowen. The master of the meteorite sighed and shook his head helplessly. Although the Jade Lady Astral Court was rich, it wasn't as rich as the House of Marquis Qin. If the Jade Lady Astral Court made such an offer, they would suffer great losses. Xian Yuanli, Su Chang, and Qin Ye looked at each other and smiled bitterly. The House of Swords, House of Marquis Baichuan, and House of Marquis Yongsheng were ranked behind the Jade Lady Astral Court. If the Jade Lady Astral Court couldn't make such an offer, they naturally couldn't either. Seeing the master of the meteorite and the other 3 shaking their heads and smiling bitterly, Lu Nantian sighed in his heart. For Zhuowen, he had put in a lot of effort. It was because he knew the strength of the other 4 that he made such a high offer. Only with such conditions would the other 4 factions not compete with him. However, even LV Nantian felt a bit of pain when he suddenly promised such generous conditions. However, when he thought about how he was getting a rank for Arcana Master with limitless potential in exchange, his originally unbalanced heart calmed down quite a bit. Seeing Lu Nantian being so polite, Gu Tian was naturally flattered. However, he didn't lose his mind. He knew that although he was the mayor of Vine Armor City, he didn't have the authority to make such a decision for Zhuowen. After thinking for a moment, Gu Tian said carefully, "Thank you, sir, for your kindness. If Zhuowen can enter the house of Marquis Qin, it would be his fortune. However, whether Zhuowen stays or not, I can't decide. If you want to recruit Zhuowen, you can wait until he comes out. It's more appropriate for you to ask him yourself." Hearing this, Lu Nantian furrowed his brows and said, "Lord Gu, aren't you the mayor of Vine Armor City? Speaking of which, you should have the authority to make the decision. After all, Zhuowen was nurtured by Vine Armor City." Gu Tian shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Let's be honest. Zhuowen's improvement really has nothing to do with Vine Armor City. In fact, Vine Armor City hasn't provided him with many resources. His abilities were all obtained through his own efforts. As such, I can't make any decisions about him." "Oh. Did he get it all by himself?" Lu Nantian was shocked. Originally, he thought that Zhuowen's achievements were due to the resources of Vine Armor City. He never thought that this wasn't the case. Instead, it was Zhuowen who had cultivated all by himself. For Zhuowen to be able to cultivate to such an extent on his own, Lu Nantian's talent was probably beyond his expectations. Lu Nantian was even more delighted and had a higher opinion of Zhuowen. He knew that even if he couldn't get Zhuowen to enter the house of Marquis Qin, he had to do his best to establish a good relationship with him. A genius like this had a limitless future. Zhuowen sat cross-legged in the gloomy hall. Golden light revolved around his body and pulsed like a heart. The aura within his body continued to rise. He had already reached the peak of the late stage of the second wheel. He only needed an opportunity to reach the peak of the second wheel. The golden light pulsed for only an hour before a powerful aura surged out like a tide. It was like a wild beast that reverberated in every corner of the hall. Rustle. The rustling of clothes rang out. Zhuowen opened his eyes and slowly rose to his feet. His face was filled with excitement. He had never thought that 3 drops of essence blood from an Ultimate Emperor Realm expert would allow him to reach the peak of the second Ultimate Emperor Realm. He was only half a step away from the third. Furthermore, he could sense that the 3 droplets of essence blood in his heart had yet to be completely absorbed. The energy within the essence blood was just too great. With his current physical constitution, he was unable to absorb it all, so the remaining energy was temporarily stored in his heart. Once Zhuowen broke through to the pinnacle Emperor realm, the energy stored in his heart would erupt like a geyser. It would spread through his limbs and bones, constantly nourishing his meridians and dantian. "Xiao Hei. How long did it take me to absorb the essence blood?" Zhuowen asked comfortably as he stood up and stretched his limbs. He felt like his entire body was brimming with energy. He could also feel that his heart and meridians seemed to have been reborn after being nourished by the essence blood. He felt extremely comfortable. "It's been 2 hours. Now, you should go to the last hall. As long as you defeat the opponent inside, you will have completely passed the Trial Mountains test." Blackie smiled faintly. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen moved a few times on the spot. With a stomp of his foot, he directly rushed towards the open silver door in front of him. He rushed towards the last hall. He knew that the most crucial battle would take place in this last hall. It's the final battle. I wonder who my final opponent will be. In the tunnel, Zhuowen moved as fast as lightning. At the same time, he thought about the opponent in the final hall. He knew that the opponent in the final hall was definitely much stronger than LV Yuanhua. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to last until the final round. Thump. 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 Clear footsteps slowly rang out. When the sound of footsteps completely vanished, Zhuowen's slender figure slowly appeared. He raised his head slightly and looked at the end of the tunnel. A tightly shut golden door stood there. The final hall, the final opponent. "Let me take a look at you." As he spoke, an earth-shattering aura suddenly burst out from Zhuowen's body. As Zhuowen moved forward, the aura on his body seemed to have reached its peak. It was like a towering mountain. Who is it? The moment the last sentence was uttered, Zhuowen's aura reached its peak. He took a final step towards the bottom of the golden door. With a cracking sound, the golden door shattered into countless pieces. Golden fragments filled the sky. It was gorgeous and dazzling. Under the golden backdrop, Zhuowen took a step forward and directly entered the hall. His gaze became exceptionally solemn. This hall was majestic and vast. It was as spacious as a huge plaza. At a glance, one could not see the end of it. It could be said to be extremely vast and boundless. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. With a glance, he noticed a figure sitting quietly at the center of the hall with his back facing him. Although there was no sound, the aura of the entire hall revolved around this person. A soundless clamor gradually rose and shook one's soul. As the golden door collapsed, the tightly shut eyes of the figure slowly opened. His gaze silently stared at Zhuowen. A moment later, a dark and cold voice slowly reverberated throughout the entire hall. "Zhuowen, your luck is really good. To think that the two of us would meet in the final round." Zhuowen's gaze also landed on this figure. His opened pupils seemed to shrink slightly as the power of heaven and earth within his body instantly boiled. In a low voice, he said, "My luck is indeed good. To think that I would meet you. It just so happens that we still need to properly settle our debt." Upon hearing these words, the figure softly chuckled. It seemed to be mocking and ridiculing. He then turned around, revealing a pale and cold face. Looking at this face, Zhuowen clenched his fists as he muttered to himself, "LV Yongsheng." When the final round of the training mountain entered, everyone on the platform began to boil. They all knew that the final round of the competition would be the most exciting. It would be a clash between the apex geniuses. Unknowingly, the second level of the Yuan Qi Tower battle is about to end. Out of nearly 10,000 geniuses, only 1,000 will have the qualifications to walk out of the training mountain and obtain the qualifications to enter the third level of the Yuan Qi Tower. Lu Nantian somewhat sighed as he looked at the light screen. That's true. Fortunately, the apex geniuses of our 5 forces did not meet. Otherwise, when 2 tigers fight, one of them will definitely be injured. The master of the meteorite nodded. She was in a very good mood. The geniuses of Jade Lady Astral Court that were focused on training did not encounter very strong opponents in the final round. Therefore, she believed that there would be a lot of spots for Jade Lady Astral Court to enter the third level. Qin Nia and Xianyuan Li were also in a very good mood. The situation of their forces was similar. The geniuses that were focused on training did not encounter very strong opponents, so it was relatively easy for them to enter the third level. However, Su Chang's expression was somewhat unnatural. One must know that their house of Baichuan had lost 4 seeded contestants, including Su Liang, in the Dark Forest. They were all geniuses of the second round. Therefore, the number of spots for the house of Baichuan to enter the third level would definitely be reduced by a lot. They could no longer be compared to the other 4 forces. Thinking of this, Su Chang's mood became extremely gloomy. In his heart, he cursed the murderer of Su Liang and the other 3. That Zhuowen is actually facing LV Yongsheng of the house of Marquis Qin. Xianyuan Li's gaze subconsciously moved to the light screen where Zhuowen was and immediately saw that Zhuowen's opponent was actually the second genius of the house of Marquis Qin, LV Yongsheng. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. As soon as he said this, Lu Nantian, the master of the meteorite, and the others immediately looked over. Sure enough, on the light screen, Zhuowen and LV Yongsheng were facing each other from a distance. This Zhuowen is really unlucky. With his strength as a 4th-level Arcana Master, as long as he doesn't encounter any top geniuses, entering the 3rd level is not a problem at all. However, now that he has encountered LV Yongsheng, I'm afraid he will be eliminated in the 2nd level. The master of the meteorite said with some regret. The master of the meteorite is right. This Zhuowen is very strong, but his luck is too bad. He actually encountered LV Yongsheng. The others also shook their heads and said regretfully. Lu Nantian laughed and said, everyone, don't worry. Even if this Zhuowen is eliminated in advance, I, Lu Nantian, will not lower the conditions because of this. This Marquis will still recruit this boy into the house of Marquis Qin. Although Lu Nantian was quite surprised that Zhuowen was facing LV Yongsheng, Zhuowen was a 4th-level arcana master. He would not let go of such a genius. Therefore, after Zhuowen was eliminated, he planned to directly teleport Zhuowen and ask his opinion. Chapter 482. Blood Demon Bone Eroding Spear, Zhuowen. Looks like we're really fated to meet each other in the final round of the Trial Mountain. LV Yongsheng's eyes were downcast as he stared at Zhuowen in the towering hall. A cold smile appeared at the corners of his mouth, as if he had found his beloved prey. There is indeed some fate between us, but it's extremely fated to meet you and your brother. I just eliminated Lu Yuanhua in the last round, and now I'm meeting you in this round. But don't worry, I'll send you out of the Yuan Energy Tower to meet your brother very soon. Zhuowen shook his head as the corners of his mouth curled up in a mocking smile, while coldness gathered in his eyes. You've met third brother. And even eliminated him. LV Yongsheng's originally calm face finally darkened when he heard this. He stared at Zhuowen as his killing intent gradually surged. He coldly said, I originally wanted to spare your life, but since you don't know what's good for you, it looks like I was too merciful. Spare my life? LV Yongsheng, with your current strength? Zhuowen sneered and suddenly took a step forward. Waves of surging aura suddenly surged out from his body, practically forming countless terrifying suction cyclones around him. The atmosphere of the entire hall instantly became much more solemn. Peak of the second will Ultimate Emperor stage. LV Yongsheng's eyes narrowed when he sensed the aura released from Zhuowen's body. A sliver of surprise appeared on his face, but it was quickly replaced by coldness. No wonder you were able to defeat third brother. However, I'm afraid that this is still not enough. As he spoke, LV Yongsheng slowly took a step forward. With this step, the originally calm hall became like a flood, surging and churning wildly. A powerful aura surged out from LV Yongsheng's body in wave after wave. A terrifying pressure pressed down like a towering mountain, causing the entire hall to violently shake. The heavy atmosphere created by Zhuowen's aura was completely crushed by this pressure. The aura of a peak early-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator. As soon as LV Yongsheng's aura was revealed, Zhuowen knew that the benefits LV Yongsheng had obtained from the Origin Qi Tower were not as good as he had imagined. He had only reached the peak of the early stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm. However, this level of cultivation was already extremely terrifying. Even Zhuowen had to take him seriously. Bang! LV Yongsheng stomped his foot, and a powerful force spread out from the bottom of his feet, causing the entire hall to shake violently. Soon after, his figure flew up, and his hands grabbed at the air. Immediately, the surrounding Yuan Qi crazily condensed, and golden light surged, transforming into two huge golden scales claws. The golden scaled claw was several tens of meters long, and it was suffused with golden light. It was like the claw of an ancient golden crow, majestic and indestructible. Golden Crow Scale Claw. LV Yongsheng twisted his waist, and the huge golden crow scale claw condensed in his hands suddenly flung out. The powerful force propelled the huge golden claws towards Zhuowen like two mountains of gold. The golden crow scale claw was a low-level Emperor Realm armor technique. It was one of the many Emperor Realm armor techniques that the House of Marquis Qin had. Its might was even greater than the mountain-splitting steel palm, and when LV Yongsheng used it, it was even more vigorous and powerful. Humph! Zhuowen snorted coldly, but he was not afraid. Although he was only at the peak of the second wheel, his true battle prowess was actually not inferior to that of an ordinary early-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Immediately, all the muscles in his body swelled, and veins of blood extended all over his body. Bloody flames erupted from his body like magma from a volcano. Then, Zhuowen clenched his fingers into fists, and directly punched at the two golden crow scale claw. Bloody flames filled the air, and the air exploded. Clang! The crisp sound of an explosion reverberated in the main hall. Enormous power erupted from Zhuowen's body like a volcano, and the huge golden crow scale claw was directly shattered. Countless golden raindrops scattered throughout the main hall. Courtesy demands reciprocity. LV Yongsheng, try this move too. After shattering the golden crow scale claw, Zhuowen's momentum did not diminish. He stretched out his right hand, and countless bloody flames filled the air, condensing into a huge bloody hand that was several hundred meters long. It was like a mountain, and directly swept towards LV Yongsheng. Whoosh whoosh. Looking at the compressed air and the blood hand that was rushing towards him at high speed, LV Yongsheng frowned slightly. His feet moved slightly, and his slender fingers moved slightly. Countless black strength chi burst out from between his fingers, like hidden weapons in the night. Hiss! 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 The huge bloody hand was cut by the black energy, and it actually collapsed and dissipated. Startling cloud limitless art. With the bloody hand broken, Zhuowen's figure did not slow down at all. He pulled out a strange bone spear with protruding joints from his back, and with a shake of his right hand, he rushed towards LV Yongsheng like he was riding the wind and breaking the waves. The surrounding area of nearly 100 meters was immediately filled with a thick fog, and LV Yongsheng was instantly submerged in it. Startling cloud limitless art. It's just a small trick. LV Yongsheng shook his head, and the fingers on his right hand moved slightly. An endless storm was set off within a few meters of his body, and like a spiral storm, it overflowed in all directions, directly blowing away the surrounding fog. Clang! The moment the fog was blown away, a crisp buzzing sound quickly swept over from behind. As the fog dispersed, Zhuowen's eyes were cold. His figure was like a shuttle, and the bone spear pierced directly towards LV Yongsheng's back. Humph! It's useless. LV Yongsheng did not even raise his head, and the corner of his mouth revealed a cold smile. He clenched his hand, and countless rays of golden light gathered. In the blink of an eye, a huge golden spear that was several hundred meters long was condensed, and the surface of the spear flickered with dense and overbearing fluctuations. Break for me. As the huge spear condensed, LV Yongsheng's fingers trembled slightly, and the huge golden spear shot out, instantly appearing behind him, and accurately locking onto the tip of the tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear. Golden light flickered, and the huge golden spear suddenly began to spin. The bone spear that had been advancing with unstoppable momentum suddenly became motionless at this moment, as if time had stopped. Zhuowen's expression changed drastically. He could feel the vast power coming from the spear hilt, and the web between his thumb and forefinger was practically numb. Thump thump thump. Zhuowen retreated a dozen steps, his gaze dark. LV Yongsheng's strength was far greater than that of an ordinary three-wheel Ultimate Emperor realm practitioner. His wrist trembled slightly, and Zhuowen's expression became rather unsightly. Jumping clown, do you really think that you can challenge me just because you defeated my third brother? Today, I will settle the score with you, along with my third brother. So go to hell. LV Yongsheng's face was full of coldness. He curled his right finger, and the huge golden spear in the air was like a hot knife through butter. With a flash of golden light, it directly chased after the retreating Zhuowen. It was obvious that LV Yongsheng was unforgiving. Humph. If you advance, the proud dragon will regret it. If you retreat, the thistle will grow. Ascending dragon style, break. Zhuowen continued to move. He gripped the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear with both hands, and the spear tilted from top to bottom. His right foot pushed forward, and an incomparably powerful aura burst forth. At this moment it was as if Zhuowen and the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear had become one. A resounding dragon's roar reverberated throughout the hall. Shortly after, Zhuowen's space cracked open, and a dragon head the size of a mountain fell from the crack. Countless strands of dragon chi were like astral winds, shattering space and tearing the air apart. The ascending dragon style was a secret technique contained within the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear. It had 4 styles: the ascending dragon style, the crouching dragon style, the swimming dragon style, and the dragon rages in the wild. The ascending dragon style was the first style, and it was extremely powerful. At this moment, the tip of Zhuowen's foot cracked the ground as an incomparably powerful energy spread out. The tyrannical dragon scale bone spear in his hands that had been accumulating power suddenly swept out. With the support of the huge dragon head in the sky, it directly smashed into the huge golden spear that was shooting towards him. Rumble! An earth-shattering explosion rang out, like countless firecrackers going off at the same time. The huge dragon head bared its steel-like teeth and bit down on the surface of the golden spear. It didn't take long for the golden spear to shatter into golden fragments. LV Yongsheng frowned slightly when he saw the golden spear shatter in an instant, and a cautious look appeared in his eyes. Zhuowen really wasn't simple. He was clearly a peak second-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator, but he hadn't been at a disadvantage in the previous exchange. His right hand pressed against the air, and a thick golden door descended from the sky, blocking LV Yongsheng's path. The huge dragon head whizzed past, but it was directly intercepted by the golden door. The golden door actually shattered it into countless fragments, and a powerful wave of qi spread out, causing LV Yongsheng's robes to flap loudly. The attacks of the two were extremely fierce and violent. In a short period of time, they were basically equally matched. Therefore, it was impossible to determine the victor quickly in a short period of time. Zhuowen stood in the air, his eyes sharp and cold as he stared at LV Yongsheng. Is this all that the second genius of the House of Marquis Qin has? If that's the case, everyone will laugh their heads off if they hear it. It's just as third brother said. You're really arrogant and unbridled. But you should know that there's nothing wrong with being arrogant and unbridled, but if you don't have the corresponding strength to back it up, you won't have a good ending. The coldness in LV Yongsheng's eyes grew even colder. He stretched out his right hand, and countless blood veins appeared on his palm, pulsing like countless meridians. Then, the blood veins abruptly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, a blood-red spear filled with the stench of blood appeared in his palm. The moment the blood-red spear appeared in his palm, LV Yongsheng's aura instantly became fierce and violent. His eyes were filled with countless blood veins, and waves of bloody aura surged out from the apertures on his body. In an instant, the entire great hall was shrouded in a dense bloody mist, and a nauseating stench of blood filled the entire great hall. Zhuowen. I'm sorry, but you're not the only one who knows how to use a spear. My weapon is also a spear. Clang! LV Yongsheng waved his right hand, and the blood-red spear cut through the air with a piercing sound. Countless bloody mists rolled and swept out, and the stench of blood seemed to become even more intense. His scarlet eyes stared coldly at Zhuowen, and he grinned coldly. This spear is called the Blood Demon Bone-Eroding Spear, and it's the personal weapon of the Blood Demon King in the ancient times. It devours bloodlines and chews on corpses. It's the overlord of blood. Zhuowen, you should be proud to be able to become nourishment for the Blood Demon Bone-Eroding Spear. Chapter 483. Regenerating Blood Essence Pill. The Blood Demonic Bone-Eroding Spear was an extremely bloody and terrifying demonic weapon. A demonic weapon was a spiritual treasure that was filled with countless negative energies. The Blood Demonic Bone-Eroding Spear was an earth-rank spiritual treasure with terrifying power. Moreover, the backlash of the blood demonic bone-eroding spear was extremely frightening. Its previous owners had all been devoured by the backlash after obtaining this demonic weapon. It was basically impossible to completely control this demonic weapon. Many experts from the House of Marquis Qin had tried to tame this ferocious demonic weapon, but none of them had been able to do so. But now, LV Yongsheng was holding it in his hand, and he didn't seem to feel the slightest bit of discomfort. It was obvious that he had completely tamed this demonic weapon. As expected of the second genius of the House of Marquis Qin. He's actually able to tame this demonic weapon. Brother LV, although your second son is only at the peak of the initial stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm, with this demonic weapon, his strength is no weaker than a mid-stage Ultimate Emperor realm expert. There was a trace of surprise in the Master of the Meteorite's beautiful eyes, especially when she saw the blood demonic bone-eroding spear in LV Yongsheng's hand. Her face was no longer calm. LV Nantian nodded in satisfaction. The son he was most proud of was naturally his eldest son, LV Itao, who had made it to the 15th place on the Green Emperor leaderboard. He naturally doted on his second son. Although LV Yongsheng's cultivation was far inferior to LV Itao's, the fact that he had made it to the top 100 of the Green Emperor leaderboard had earned him a lot of face. And the fact that LV Yongsheng had managed to tame the blood demonic bone-eroding spear made him extremely happy. Yongsheng's talent is very good, and he's also very bold. Back then, the other geniuses in our house didn't even dare to approach the blood demonic bone-eroding spear, but he dared and even took the initiative to approach it. Although he suffered a lot, he was still able to tame it in the end. LV Nanshan's face was full of smiles. After all, LV Yongsheng was his son. As a father, he was naturally gratified and happy to receive praise from others. If you want to tame the blood demon corroding bone spear, you need to have enough courage. In fact, in the last battle for the Vitality Tower, that genius from your House of Marquis Qin was so stubborn that he insisted on choosing the blood demon inheritance on the 4th floor. That kind of inheritance is too terrifying, and it's not something an ordinary person can withstand. In the end, he was unable to withstand the corrosion of the blood demon's terrifying baleful aura. Fortunately, that genius had a firm will. Although the inheritance failed, he relied on his tenacious will to forcefully bring back the forbidden technique, Blood Demon Descends, and this blood demon corroding bone spear. However, his final outcome was. When the Master of the Meteorite said this, she quietly sized up Lu Nantian. She didn't continue speaking. She knew that the previous House of Marquis Qin was the brother of the Lu Nantian. Lu Nanshan's face darkened. It's all in the past. Let's not talk about it anymore. Although our House of Marquis Qin missed out on the inheritance last time, we won't miss out on it this time. As he said this, Lu Nanshan's sharp gaze dimmed. The last battle for the Vitality Tower was a matter of 100 years ago. At that time, he was still young, and that genius was his elder brother, Lu Hantian. At that time, Lu Hantian's talent was extremely terrifying. His cultivation was much higher than that of his eldest son, Lu Itao. Apart from the top 10 geniuses of the Imperial City, he was also a peerless expert ranked 11th on the Azure Emperor leaderboard. Unfortunately, Lu Hantian was a wanton and unrestrained person. He did as he pleased and didn't like to be bound by rules. As long as he wanted to do something, even 10 bulls couldn't pull him back. In the previous battle for the Vitality Tower, Lu Hantian unsurprisingly suppressed many geniuses. Even the top geniuses of the other 4 super forces could only look up to Lu Hantian. However, when entering the 4th floor of the Vitality Tower to explore the ancient ruins and accept the ancient inheritance, Lu Hantian stubbornly chose the most powerful and terrifying inheritance, the Blood Demon inheritance. However, the Blood Demon inheritance was too terrifying. Even though Lu Hantian was extremely talented, he still couldn't resist the endless negative emotions of the Blood Demon when accepting the inheritance. In the end, he was seriously injured by the Blood Demon's backlash. Fortunately, Lu Hantian wasn't a pushover. Although he was affected by the blood demon's backlash, he relied on his terrifying willpower to maintain his consciousness. Moreover, he directly plundered the forbidden technique, Blood Demon's Descent, and the Blood Demon's bone-corroding spear from the Blood Demon inheritance. However, after teleporting out of the Vitality Tower, Lu Hantian was already at the end of his rope. Even though the House of Marquis Qin spent countless resources to extend Lu Hantian's life, they could only keep him alive for half a year. Thinking of that high-spirited figure, Lu Nantian had a bitter expression on his face. He knew that if his elder brother was still alive, his current cultivation would be extremely terrifying. Moreover, their Muqin County wouldn't have lost so miserably in the War of the Nine Counties. Whoosh! Suddenly, ripples appeared around Lu Nantian. A white light flashed, and a somewhat dazed Lu Yuanhua suddenly appeared in front of Lu Nantian. At this moment, Lu Yuanhua's expression was extremely pale. He had used up nearly half of his essence blood, and his body didn't have a trace of strength. This is, the top of the trial mountain. Father, why am I here? Lu Yuanhua blankly looked around and asked doubtfully. Humph. You still ask me why you're here? Who gave you the Blood Demon's Descent? Is this forbidden technique something you can learn? Fortunately, you've only learned a little bit of it. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Lu Nantian's expression was extremely solemn, and his eyes were filled with indifference. He was extremely angry that Lu Yuanhua had practiced the Blood Demon's Descent without permission. If this forbidden technique wasn't controlled properly, it could cost one's life. LV Yuanhua shrunk his neck back. This was the first time he had seen LV Nantian so angry. He weakly said, "The Blood Demon Descends was something I secretly took from the mansion's scripture pavilion. At that time, it was also because I was very unwilling and didn't want to lose to that bastard Zhuo, so I was forced to use the Blood Demon Descends. Humph. Don't use the Blood Demon's Descent in the future. This forbidden technique will harm others and yourself. In the end, you'll even pay with your life. Take this life blood pill, it can help you quickly recover your essence blood." Lu Nantian coldly snorted. With a flick of his sleeve, a warm red pill shot into Lu Yuanhua's palm. A surge of vitality flowed out from the pill. Feeling the warmth of the pill in his palm, Lu Yuanhua's face was filled with joy. He hurriedly said, "Thank you, Father. I won't use the Blood Demon's Descent in the future." The life blood pill wasn't an ordinary pill. Its value wasn't inferior to an earth-rank spiritual treasure. Lu Nantian rarely used this kind of precious pill. Now that he had taken it out for Lu Yuanhua, it naturally moved Lu Yuanhua's heart and he repeatedly promised. "In the future, you'll do things more steadily. Now, stand by my side and watch the final round of the trial mountain. This will be extremely useful to you." Lu Nantian nodded. Soon after, he placed his hands behind his back and no longer paid attention to Lu Yuanhua. Instead, he looked at the screen of light on the heaven and earth monolith. After swallowing the life blood pill, Lu Yuanhua's complexion became much rosier. His originally weak body was filled with energy. His entire body felt warm and comfortable. Seeing that Lu Nantian didn't say anything, Lu Yuanhua naturally didn't dare to say anything. Instead, he locked his gaze on the screen of light on the heaven and earth monolith. I wonder who Zhuowen's opponent will be in the final round. It'll be best if he meets the strongest monstrous geniuses and suffers a crushing defeat. I found this kid. While browsing through the screen, Lu Yuanhua immediately found the screen of light where Zhuowen was. However, when he saw Zhuowen's opponent, he suddenly laughed. This was because Zhuowen's opponent was actually his second brother, Lu Yongsheng. Ha! It seems like enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Zhuowen, this little bastard, actually met my second brother in the final round. With my second brother's strength, even if this Zhuowen has level 4 lower mental power, it's unlikely that he'll be a match for my second brother. Now, my second brother can avenge me. Lu Yuanhua had strong confidence in Lu Yongsheng. This was because he knew that Lu Yongsheng's true strength was extremely terrifying. Especially when Lu Yongsheng revealed a demonic weapon like the blood demon corroding bone spear. Then, Zhuowen's chances of winning were even lower. In the main hall, countless blood mists rolled and the smell of blood permeated the air. Crash! A scarlet luster, like sticky blood, spread out from the blood demon corroding bone spear. The nauseating smell of blood permeated the entire main hall. Blood demon corroding bone spear. As if he was sleep-talking, Zhuowen's lips slowly wriggled. However, his gaze became much more serious. This blood spear gave him an extremely strong sense of danger, much stronger than Lu Yongsheng's. Since you forced me to use this blood demon corroding bone spear, you won't have any regrets if you lose. Lu Yongsheng roared in a low voice. The tragic blood color in the depths of his eyes spread out, turning his entire eyes into a terrifying scarlet color. At the same time, he took a step forward. Countless blood auras erupted, and Lu Yongsheng's entire body turned into a terrifying blood shadow, rushing straight towards Zhuowen. Buzz! A clear buzzing sound rang out. The blood spear swept across the air. The spiral-shaped spear tip actually trembled slightly, emitting a strange ear-piercing buzzing sound wave that rapidly spread out in the air. Zhuowen's face darkened. This was because when he felt the sound wave approaching, the blood in his body started to boil uncontrollably, as if it wanted to break out of his body. What a strange demonic spear. Just the sound wave it emits is actually able to affect the blood in my body. Zhuowen stirred the blood flames in his body and forcefully suppressed the boiling blood in his body. His gaze was grave, but he was not the slightest bit afraid. The dragon scale dominating bone spear in his hand stretched out. His 5 fingers suddenly moved, and the huge bone spear began to violently spin. Countless forces swirled in the air, flying straight towards the incoming Lu Yongsheng. Swoosh! Lu Yongsheng was the first to arrive. With a shake of his right hand, countless blood-colored spear shadows burst forth, enveloping Zhuowen. A powerful force spread out in all directions, causing a bloody mist to erupt. The smell of blood permeated the air, and even the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves could be heard. Advance and the arrogant dragon will regret. Retreat and the thistle will grow. Arrogant dragon style, come out. Chapter 484. Blood Demon Chlorumble. Space exploded as the several hundred feet long dragon head appeared once again. It was like a mountain as it pressed down on LV Yongsheng. Humph! LV Yongsheng, who was in mid-air, snorted coldly. He stomped his feet in the air, twisted his waist, and spun 360 degrees. The blood demon corroding bone spear in his hand turned into a blood-red light under the force of his waist, and directly blasted towards the dragon head in the sky. Boom! 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 Continuous explosions rang out as the surrounding space instantly collapsed. Blood chi filled the air as the bloody spear seemed to be able to shake the heavens and earth as it destroyed the ascending dragon-style attack with irresistible force. LV Yongsheng's figure did not change after the huge dragon head was destroyed. His feet gently stepped on the air as he instantly arrived above Zhuowen like a bloody arrow. With a shake of his right hand, countless bloody spear shadows rained down like raindrops. Zhuowen did not dare to be careless in the face of LV Yongsheng's attack. His right hand that was holding the tyrannical dragon-scale bone spear suddenly tightened as the bone spear shot out, turning into countless spear shadows that blocked the countless bloody spear shadows. Immediately, the sound of metal clashing resounded throughout the hall. Ding! 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 The two figures were like ghosts as they flew across the entire hall. Every time they crossed paths, dazzling sparks and terrifying energy would appear. Bang! In the air of the hall, the two figures fiercely clashed once again. Violent ripples spread out in all directions like ripples. Immediately, one of the figures was actually directly sent flying. He repeatedly retreated over a dozen steps in the air. Finally, his feet stepped on a stone pillar not far away. The powerful force caused countless cracks to appear on the surface of the stone pillar. Raising his head slightly, a handsome yet gloomy face was revealed. It was Zhuowen. In the previous exchange, Zhuowen was actually at a disadvantage. LV Yongsheng, who possessed the blood demon bone-eroding spear, was indeed incomparably powerful. Sizzle. The surface of the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear in Zhuowen's hand was actually entwined by sticky black blood. A corrosive sound was constantly emitted as the black blood began to corrode the body of the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear. What a strange demonic artifact. Just the blood chi it emits has such terrifying corrosiveness. Zhuowen's expression changed as he frowned. Ha! The blood demon corroding bone spear is known as a demonic artifact, but that's not just a title. The terrifying negative energy contained within it is extremely corrosive. Even if the tyrannical dragon scale bone spear in your hand is a mid-grade earth-rank soul artifact, it is still unable to withstand this corrosive power. LV Yongsheng also saw the movement of the bone spear in Zhuowen's hand. The corners of his mouth parted, revealing a row of eerily white teeth. That might not be the case. Zhuowen smiled faintly and clenched his right hand. Suddenly, a blue and green flame burst out from his palm. Following that, Zhuowen rubbed his right palm on the spear, and the two-colored flame covered the entire tyrannical dragon scale bone spear. The black blood on the spear was evaporated by the high temperature. LV Yongsheng frowned. He didn't expect that the terrifying blood chi unique to the blood demon eroding bone spear would be destroyed by Zhuowen's strange two-colored flame. This was somewhat out of his expectations. You do have some ability, but that's all. LV Yongsheng only snorted coldly after his attack failed. Soon after, his right hand gently rubbed the blood demon eroding bone spear's body. Following that, he directly stabbed the spear in front of him. His hands quickly formed a seal, and in an instant, the blood demon eroding bone spear spewed out endless blood chi like a fountain. Blood demon claw. The moment the complicated handprint was condensed, LV Yongsheng's right hand fiercely bombarded the ground. Immediately, countless densely packed black runes burst out from his palm. With him as the center, they spread to a range of several tens of feet, forming a huge black area. His right hand suddenly pressed against the ground as the tip of LV Yongsheng's foot touched the spear's hilt. He looked down at Zhuowen from above and said, "Zhuowen, have a taste of true hell." As he spoke, LV Yongsheng pushed with both hands. The black area of several dozen meters instantly enveloped Zhuowen in the center. Zhuowen only felt a strong sense of crisis. He stomped his feet, wanting to escape from the black area. Who knew that the gravity in this strange area was hundreds of times stronger than the outside world? Every step he took was as if he was stepping on a swamp. It was very painful and helpless. Plop. Plop. The sound of stones and water continuously resounded in this black area. The area of several dozen meters was instantly filled with countless black ghostly hands, all of which stretched out from the ground. The ghostly hands were incomparably black, as if they were dyed black bone hands. The sharp five-finger bones were like the claws and teeth of ghosts. Looking at them made people feel a chill down their spine and sweat on their forehead. It was indeed very appropriate to describe them as ghostly hands. Whoosh! 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 As soon as the countless ghostly hands appeared, they actually grabbed towards Zhuowen, who was in the center of the area. Wherever they passed, the smell of blood spread, adding a sense of horror to this gloomy environment. What a good move. You actually have this move. Zhuowen's face was gloomy. He patted his Qianquan bag with his right hand and immediately summoned the nine-wheel burning sky cauldron. He did not hold back and patted the top with both hands. Immediately, the nine-will burning sky cauldron spewed out 4 types of earth fire. Under the effect of the nine-will burning sky array, it turned into a 4-colored firestorm that violently surged out. Boom! Boom! In just an instant, the 4-colored firestorm immediately swallowed the surrounding ghostly hands. The violent energy swept out and the stone pillars around the hall immediately collapsed and shattered. Another Earth-tier spirit treasure. LV Yongsheng's pupils constricted when he saw this scene. He'd never imagined that Zhuo Wen would actually possess 2 earthly rank spirit treasures. Isn't this fellow from a tiny low-level city a bit too wealthy? LV Yongsheng. Are you satisfied? If you are, then it's my turn. After breaking the blood demon claw, Zhuo Wen stepped out. With a wave of his right hand, the nine-will burning sky cauldron spewed out 4 types of earth fire again. They condensed into a 4-colored firestorm that directly swept towards LV Yongsheng. At the same time, Zhuo Wen was not idle. His right foot stepped on the ground and his entire body turned into a shadow. He followed closely behind the 4-colored firestorm. The dragon scale dominating bone spear in his hand was ready to be used. Once LV Yongsheng showed a slight flaw, Zhuo Wen would mercilessly stab at him. You think you have victory in your hands just because you have 2 earth-rank soul treasures? I think you are really too naive. LV Yongsheng's eyes were gloomy. He stepped lightly and retreated a dozen steps. At the same time, he pressed his right thumb between his teeth and bit it. His right thumb gently rubbed the spear and a strong bloody aura surged out. Blood demon real body, appear. With a low cry, LV Yongsheng's hands rapidly formed a seal. Immediately, a monstrous bloody aura rushed out from the spear and gradually condensed behind him, transforming into a several thousand feet large bloody illusory figure. Regardless of aura or size, the blood demon real body was much more powerful than the blood demon that Lu Yuanhua had summoned. The two were not even on the same level. Bang bang bang. The 4-colored firestorm swept across the empty space of the large hall. Many stone pillars collapsed and exploded from the frightening energy. Immediately, the entire large hall was filled with dust and falling rocks. Roar! The blood demon real body was completely condensed the instant the 4-colored firestorm swept over. The huge blood figure that was like a pillar supporting the sky suddenly transformed into a huge bloody glow that whizzed out. Countless bloody auras erupted and the entire large hall turned into a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Rumble. The firestorm and the enormous blood figure finally collided with a loud bang. In an instant, an earth-shaking loud sound suddenly sounded. The entire large hall shook intensely as countless rock fragments rolled down from the top of the large hall. In just a few moments, cracks began to appear on the hard walls around the main hall due to the ripples. The cracks continued to expand, and the light mirrors hidden in the walls for surveillance were shattered into dust under the effect of the ripples. Dong! With the destruction of the light mirrors, the light screen that belonged to Zhuo Wen and LV Yongsheng on the Heaven and Earth tablet at the top of the Trial Mountain instantly became blurry. The scene inside could no longer be seen clearly. Many people who were originally paying attention to this light screen were stunned. They never expected that such an unexpected situation would occur when the battle between Zhuo Wen and LV Yongsheng had reached its climax. This caused many people to feel extremely depressed in their hearts. At the front of the group, Lu Nantian and the others who were watching nervously also did not expect such a situation to occur. Helplessness filled their eyes as they looked at the blurry light screen. Zhuo Wen's cultivation has increased so quickly after absorbing 3 drops of the ultimate 9th Will Emperor Stage Warrior's blood essence. Moreover, the strength that he has displayed is also so powerful. It seems that I have underestimated Zhuo Wen. Lu Nantian had basically seen the entire battle between Zhuo Wen and LV Yongsheng. He was also extremely shocked by the strength that Zhuo Wen had displayed. It should be known that LV Yongsheng had even taken out a demonic weapon like the blood demon bone-eroding spear. However, Zhuowen still showed no signs of being defeated. Moreover, he knew that Zhuowen's strongest mental energy was the 4th grade. If he used his mental energy, the outcome of this battle would be difficult to predict. Father. Don't worry. You still don't know second brother's strength. This Zhuowen can only jump around for a while. Once second brother gets serious, Zhuowen will definitely lose. Lu Yuanhua, who was standing beside Lu Nantian, did not look worried at all. Although he was a little surprised by the evenly matched battle just now, LV Yongsheng had yet to display his true strength. He did not believe that Zhuowen would be able to block his second brother's attack when the time came. Lu Nantian shook his head. Lu Yuanhua's strength was too low to see how terrifying Zhuowen was. How could he not see it? It should be known that from the moment Zhuowen entered the main hall and saw LV Yongsheng until now, there was not a trace of fear on his face. What did this mean? It meant that Zhuowen had great confidence in facing LV Yongsheng. However, the stronger Zhuowen's performance, the more valuable it is to recruit him. The outcome should be decided very soon. Although Zhuowen's strength is indeed strong, Yongsheng still has a trump card. It is already very impressive that Zhuowen was able to force Yongsheng to use the blood demon bone-eroding spear. However, it will end here. Yongsheng should be able to win in the end. Chapter 485. Boundless sea of blood. The ancient hall was filled with dust, the stone pillars were crooked, and vision was blurred. The entire hall was a mess. Whoosh! A figure suddenly shot out from a corner of the hall. The spear in his hand shuttled back and forth in the dust. Wherever it passed, countless cyclones and astral winds swirled, and the surrounding dust was directly swept away. Zhuowen. Just die. You are indeed very strong to be able to break my blood demon real body. Unfortunately, your opponent is me, LV Yongsheng. So just die peacefully. As the spear swept past, dust flew everywhere, revealing a cold and pale face. It was LV Yongsheng, who was in a sorry state. His clothes were tattered, his hair was disheveled, and his body was bleeding from many wounds. LV Yongsheng streaked through the air and instantly flashed from one corner of the hall to the other. There was an enormous pit in that corner, and there was a slender and miserable figure struggling to get up from within the pit. When LV Yongsheng looked carefully, he realized that it was actually Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen was in a worse state than LV Yongsheng. His clothes were almost torn, revealing his muscular upper body. Blood was flowing from the hideous wounds. LV Yongsheng's blood demon real body was too terrifying. Although Zhuowen had used the four-colored firestorm, it was still unable to block the powerful attack of the blood demon real body. Moreover, Zhuowen was injured by the aftermath of the energy and was in such a sorry state. Whoosh! The blood spear swept through the void and instantly reached the top of the pit. The cold and bloody tip of the spear was aimed at the space between Zhuowen's eyebrows. It was as fast as lightning, like an extremely fast blood light. Zhuowen, die. LV Yongsheng's eyes were filled with joy, and his face was filled with a crazy smile. This annoying Zhuowen was finally going to die in his hands. Thinking of this possibility, LV Yongsheng could not help but feel extremely excited. LV Yongsheng. You underestimate me too much. Seeing the blood spear rushing towards him, Zhuowen's eyes were cold and calm. His mud pill palace spun crazily, and his mental strength poured out like a tide, forming a transparent defensive wall in front of him. Oh. It's mental strength. I once heard from my third brother that you are also a grade 3 arcana master. However, do you think that grade 3 mental strength can stop me? Seeing the unique transparent ripples of mental strength in front of Zhuowen, LV Yongsheng was first stunned. Then, the corner of his mouth twitched of disdain. The spear in LV Yongsheng's grade 3 mental strength studio. In his eyes, Zhuowen's. Mental strength of Yongsheng, S grade 3 mental strength. Boom! When the blood spear reached the mental energy wall, a dense circular ripple spread out. The blood spear, which was originally unstoppable, seemed to have entered a swamp as its speed rapidly decreased. In the end, it completely stopped when it was an inch away from Zhuo Wen's forehead. Is you. This spiritual energy isn't something a third-rank arcana master should possess. Could it be that you're already a fourth-rank arcana master? LVS, is. Just as you can see, this is mental strength of the initial grade 4. Zhuo Wen smiled faintly. With a thought, the transparent mental energy wall suddenly exploded, turning into countless transparent hidden weapons that shot at LV Yongsheng. The sound of countless energies flying rang out continuously. LV Yongsheng's expression changed drastically. He pulled back his right hand and pulled out the blood spear. Then, he swept it horizontally. Blood qi surged out, blocking the numerous hidden weapons. LV Yongsheng used the recoil to retreat a dozen or so meters. He stared darkly at Zhuowen in front of him. You are a grade 4 arcana master. LV Yongsheng's face was filled with shock and uncertainty. He did not expect Zhuowen to have already become a grade 4 arcana master. This was too sudden and unexpected for him. After all, advancing from 3rd rank arcana master to 4th rank was a qualitative change. Once an arcana master reached the 4th rank, he or she would basically become a powerhouse. The reason why a grade 4 arcana master was so much stronger than a grade 3 arcana master was because the mental strength of a grade 4 arcana master was no weaker than an earth tier spirit treasure. In other words, a casual attack from a grade 4 arcana master was equivalent to a cultivator using an earth tier spirit treasure to attack with all their might. Their strength far exceeded that of an ordinary cultivator. It was precisely because a grade 4 arcana master was so terrifying that advancing from grade 3 to grade 4 was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It was 100 times more difficult than advancing to the ultimate emperor realm. It was said that some extremely talented arcana masters only took 2 years to become arcana masters, but it took them more than 20 years to go from arcana master to arcana master. Some of the less talented arcana masters might not even be able to become arcana masters in their entire lives. From this, one could see just how difficult it was to become arcana masters. However, what LV Yongsheng could not imagine was how old Zhuowen was. He was not even 20 years old, yet he was already a grade 4 arcana master. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he definitely would have thought that this was a lie made up by someone. However, now that he had seen it with his own eyes, he had no choice but to believe it. Clang! Clang! The sound of metal clashing resounded. Zhuo Wen slapped his Qiankuan pouch and countless sword beams flashed out. Numerous sword-shaped spirit treasures with flowing lights and vibrant colors revolved around Zhuo Wen. Zhuo Wen's entire body slowly floated in the air under the effect of his mind power as he coldly looked down at LV Yongsheng. I've said before that I'll settle our debts with you one day. Now is that day. Zhuo Wen's gaze was extremely calm. Under the influence of his mental strength, Zhuo Wen's hair and clothes danced wildly. The terrifying wounds on his body slowly healed under the effects of the Hell King's heart. He was like a demon or a god. LV Yongsheng's face became extremely gloomy when he saw the awe-inspiring Zhuowen above him. Zhuowen's strength had already exceeded his expectations. God damn it! How does this guy cultivate? It hasn't been that long, but he's already so strong. I should have hardened my heart and killed this little bastard back in the mortal tier pavilion. He wouldn't have become so difficult to deal with now, he cursed inwardly. LV Yongsheng's eyes were filled with regret as he cursed inwardly. Zhuo Wen had only been a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator before the tower had been opened, while he was a 3-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. At that time, Zhuo Wen had been completely powerless against him. But now, not only did the little bastard in front of him possess strength comparable to his own, he was also a rank for Arcana Master. Outside of the Origin Energy Tower, this kind of strength and identity was definitely an existence that was worth fighting over. Father has probably already noticed this bastard. Once this bastard leaves this place alive, even I won't have another chance to act. He might even become the focus of Father's nurturing. This is my last chance to kill him. I must kill Zhuowen this time. LV Yongsheng's eyes flashed with killing intent. He knew that he had to kill Zhuowen in the Trial Mountains, or there would be endless trouble in the future. Zhuowen, you must die today. With that, LV Yongsheng suddenly grasped the blood demon bone-eroding spear and swiped his palm across the tip of the spear, causing blood to spurt out. Splash! As the blood spurted out, a bloody light suddenly surged out from the blood demon bone-eroding spear. Strangely, this bloody light was like countless blood insects, madly surging into LV Yongsheng's body. For a moment, LV Yongsheng was completely enveloped by the bloody light. Under the infusion of the blood light, LV Yongsheng's aura skyrocketed like a rainbow piercing through the sun. On the surface of his body, countless blood lights wriggled. If one looked carefully, these wriggling blood lights changed shape rapidly, turning into ferocious human faces. A woo! Wails like ghosts and howls like wolves constantly rang out from the bloody lights. These human faces were all the vengeful spirits that LV Yongsheng had killed over the years. The vengeful spirits of these people were nourishment for the blood demon bone-eroding spear. Now that they had been released, they could actually greatly increase LV Yongsheng's strength. Roar! LV Yongsheng roared at the sky, his eyes scarlet and his expression ferocious. A bloody sound wave spread out, causing the ground to crack. Thump! 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 Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. With a thought, the boundless sword force protected his body as he retreated dozens of steps. Looking at the bloody figure in the distance, Zhuowen's expression became extremely serious. With the support of the bloody light, LV Yongsheng's aura skyrocketed several times. He rose from the peak of the early stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm to the mid-stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm. At this moment, he was surrounded by bloody qi, causing the space to crack. Zhuowen! Die! As he spoke, LV Yongsheng stomped his foot. With the support of countless bloody qi, the ground cracked. His entire body was like a bloody giant as he brazenly charged at Zhuowen. The bloody spear in his hand seemed to have become one with him. He waved it casually, tearing through the air with vast power. Boundless sea of blood. Thick blood gushed out from the blood demon bone-eroding spear, engulfing the entire hall. It was as if the entire hall had sunk into a sea of blood. LV Yongsheng stood at the top of the sea of blood. With a slap of the spear in his right hand, the spear merged into the boundless sea of blood. Raging waves surged as the sea of blood filled the air. The stench of blood roiled, and the bloody qi permeated the air. For a moment, the hall was almost dyed blood-red. Bang! 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 Within the hall, cracks began to spread out. The entire hall was showing signs of collapsing. Zhuowen's expression became extremely grave. He could sense that the sea of blood rushing towards him had an extremely terrifying aura. It was the fear of death. He knew that if he was enveloped by this sea of blood, he would definitely die. Phew! Looks like I'll have to go all out. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen's eyes revealed a trace of madness. He liked the feeling of hovering between life and death. He enjoyed it because only a cultivator who had experienced life and death could possess the key to the path of the strong. Zhuowen loved this feeling. His Naiwen palace began to spin wildly. Zhuowen's expression was grave. He suddenly waved his right hand, and an endless amount of spiritual energy poured out and merged with the boundless sword intent around him. Buzz! The 108 sword-shaped spiritual treasures buzzed in unison. The clear sword chime reverberated throughout the hall, faintly forming a special symphony. Chapter 486. Annihilation Sword Light. Invisible mental energy spread across the entire large hall like floodwaters. Soon after, sword light flashed across the sky. The sword light was like drifting snow as it enveloped the entire large hall. In an instant, with Zhuowen at the center, the area within a few hundred feet had turned into a domain of flashing sword light. The enormous sword light domain seemed to revolve around Zhuowen, like a nebula in the universe, brilliant and colorful. The cold light that flashed outside the sword light domain was so powerful that it caused the space to collapse and turn into a black hole. Swoosh! The instant the enormous sword light domain was formed, LV Yongsheng also rushed over with the boundless sea of blood. A sharp blood light flashed out from the sea of blood. Wherever it passed, the sea of blood split apart and space collapsed. It was LV Yongsheng's blood demonic bone eroding spear. Both Zhuowen and LV Yongsheng had used all of their trump cards. The outcome of this battle would be decided in this intense clash. Rumble. At this time, the huge hall was almost divided into two strange areas. The monstrous sea of blood and the endless sword light each occupied the area of the hall. Then, they swept out with a whistling sound, and finally collided with each other like meteorites colliding. Bang! An earth-shattering sound resounded throughout the entire hall. The impact of the collision caused fine cracks to appear on the ground. They were like a spider web that was densely packed. Ring-shaped waves of air swept out in all directions and bombarded the walls around the main hall with unparalleled power. Countless pieces of rock were directly shattered, and the few remaining stone pillars in the main hall were all shattered inch by inch, turning into fine powder that filled the air. The instant the sword light domain collided with the boundless sea of blood, Zhuowen's body trembled as the blood in his body surged. With a groan, he retreated as blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Block it! Seeing that the sword light domain was being suppressed, Zhuowen roared towards the sky. The mental energy in his Naiwan palace poured out without any regard for his life, adding to the infinite sword aura. Instantly, countless sword cries gathered as the sword light domain swelled and turned into a rotating nebula. Humph! As soon as the sword light nebula formed, it blocked the invasion of the boundless sea of blood. At the same time, a soft groan rang out from the boundless sea of blood. Clearly, LV Yongsheng was not feeling too well either. LV Yongsheng was indeed powerful. His strength had almost surpassed that of an ordinary three-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. One had to know that ever since Zhuowen had increased the might of the boundless sword intent, the might of the three sword techniques it contained had been greatly enhanced. The most terrifying one was naturally the third sword move, the 9 consecutive moves of the heavenly sword dance. The principle of this move was to use the 108 sword-shaped spirit treasures of the infinite sword aura to perform 9 sword moves at lightning speed. From there, it quickly formed an extremely terrifying sword light domain. It was like a nebula storm that could crush everything. Originally, Zhuowen thought that after he used the 9 consecutive moves of the rotating heaven sword dance, he would be able to obtain a crushing victory. However, he did not expect that LV Yongsheng's boundless sea of blood would not be easy to deal with. Its power was even stronger than the sword light domain. Roar! Seeing that the sword light domain had gained the upper hand, a beast-like roar suddenly rang out from the sea of blood. Above the sea of blood, LV Yongsheng's eyes were scarlet red. His face was ferocious as he stared coldly at Zhuowen. His eyes were filled with ferocity and bloodlust. Kill! Kill everything! A sharp low roar reverberated over the entire hall. Immediately, LV Yongsheng's hands swiftly swung the blood spear. In an instant, many blood-colored spear shadows that were 1,000 feet long rushed over from all directions. All of them smashed into the sword light domain. Thump! 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 The sword light domain showed signs of being pushed back by such a crazy attack. Zhuowen was not feeling well at all. Maintaining the sword light domain consumed a great deal of mental energy. I'll suppress you even if I have to risk my life. Suppress. Zhuowen was going all out as well. Mental energy was continuously released from his Naiwen palace. At the same time, the 81 strands of mental energy cultivated from the myriad expansion scripture were used to reinforce the sword light domain. In an instant, the sword light domain expanded a little. Sword light filled the sky as sword chi rampaged. Boom! 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 An earth-shattering sound reverberated in the hall. The countless blood spear shadows that LV Yongsheng had unleashed were directly crushed by the strengthened sword light domain. They turned into blood light and disappeared. LV Yongsheng, who was above the sea of blood, spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked a little dispirited. This is a good opportunity. Seeing LV Yongsheng's dispirited expression, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He formed a sword sign with his right hand. Suddenly, the sword light domain suppressed the sea of blood. LV Yongsheng retreated again and again. Blood flowed from the surface of his body and formed a layer of blood clothes on the surface of his body. I won't lose. Blood demon soul, descend upon my body. My blood essence will be your meal. The veins on LV Yongsheng's forehead bulged. His face was ferocious and his eyes were scarlet. His face was filled with madness. His hands formed a complicated seal. In an instant, the dispirited aura in his body recovered a lot. Blood demon's descent. Zhuowen's face changed when he saw the seal on LV Yongsheng's hands. This was not the first time he had seen such a seal. Lu Yuanhua had also used such a forbidden technique. However, Lu Yuanhua's cultivation was shallow and he did not display the full power of the blood demon's descent. However, LV Yongsheng was different. LV Yongsheng, who could tame the blood demon corroding bone spear, was probably the most suitable candidate to use the blood demon's descent. Moreover, his strength would definitely increase by a terrifying amount. Boom! LV Yongsheng slowly stood up amidst the bloody aura. At this moment, he was basically covered in blood. The viscous blood slowly flowed all over his body, emitting a somewhat disgusting gurgling sound. At the same time, the void behind him collapsed and a huge black hole appeared. A blood shadow that was thousands of feet tall stepped out of the black hole. It was as if the sky was shaking and the earth was shaking. Blood chi filled the air and blood light soared into the sky. The blood demon soul that LV Yongsheng had summoned was much stronger than the one that Lu Yuanhua had summoned. Just its aura alone was enough to make people tremble in fear. With just a raise of its hand, it could create a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The blood demon's soul glanced at LV Yongsheng indifferently. Its eyes were filled with coldness and bloodlust. It nodded and shrank, entering LV Yongsheng's body. Roar! Mournful roars rang out continuously. With LV Yongsheng as the center, blood-red sound waves spread out in all directions. The space collapsed and the air boiled. The roars gradually calmed down. At this moment, LV Yongsheng's entire body was covered in blood. It was as if he had put on a layer of blood-red armor. On his forehead, elbows, knees, and back, there were blood-red horns that emitted a blood-red light that sent chills down people's spines. At this moment, LV Yongsheng did not look like a human at all. He was simply the world's most perfect killing machine. Creak! Creak! As LV Yongsheng moved his limbs, ear-piercing explosions rang out around him. It was as if every step he took was shattering bones. The sound was chilling. Zhuowen, your blood, your life, all belong to me. LV Yongsheng's right hand, which was covered in blood-red thorns, gently touched the blood-red spear. On the surface of the blood demon corroding bone spear, sinister blood-red horns squirmed and grew. It looked like a hedgehog, sinister and terrifying. Boom! With a stomp, LV Yongsheng almost turned into a blood-red shadow. Under the scouring of the sea of blood, a blood-red spear that looked down on all heroes swept out. The perfect combination of man and spear arrived at the sword-light domain in an instant. LV Yongsheng pointed his spear at the void. Countless blood-red lights spread out and bombarded the sword-light domain. Bang! This spear possessed a peerless beauty, a desolate and decisive aura, and an indomitable spirit. With a clink, the blood spear smashed into the sword-light domain and directly forced it back a step. On the other hand, Zhuo Wen's mind shook. He let out a muffled groan and also took a large step back. It's not over yet. Zhuowen, I'm going to beat you until you kneel and beg for mercy. A cruel laugh came from LV Yongsheng's mouth. Shortly after, LV Yongsheng stomped his foot and the blood demon corroding bone spear danced in the air. The powerful force almost forced the sword-light domain back again and again. At the same time, LV Yongsheng used both his hands and feet, bombarding the sword-light domain with extreme speed. Dang dang dang. Retreating a dozen steps, Zhuowen's face was pale. Blood gushed out from the corner of his mouth. His face was ferocious and the veins on his forehead were bulging. Last move, I'll directly break your sword-light domain. LV Yongsheng was unforgiving. His right hand touched the blood-red spear and his left hand slapped the handle of the blood-red spear. The blood-red spear turned into a blood-red light and drilled into the sword-light domain. At the same time, LV Yongsheng, whose body was covered with blood-red horns, roared towards the sky. His whole body spun crazily in the air and turned into a blood-red meteor, falling rapidly behind the blood-red spear. Boom! 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 The blood-red spear stopped at the periphery of the sword-light domain. It only paused for a moment before it pierced through. In an instant, countless sword lights were corroded by the blood-red light and dimmed. Break for me! LV Yongsheng rushed into the center of the sword-light domain. His hands, which were covered with blood-red horns, tore the surrounding sword lights into nothingness. In an instant, the sword-light domain collapsed into nothingness under LV Yongsheng's wanton destruction. Puff! As soon as the sword-light domain collapsed, Zhuowen flew out. He couldn't help but spit out a big mouthful of blood. His face was gloomy to the extreme. After fusing with the blood demon soul, LV Yongsheng's strength was too abnormal. He actually broke his sword-light domain so easily. Boom! He smashed heavily into the ground, causing the ground to crack, forming a crater that was dozens of feet wide. Zhuowen knelt in the center of the crater on one knee. His muscular body was already drenched in blood. Fortunately, he had an extremely abnormal recovery ability, so he was not too worried about these injuries. Thump! 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 LV Yongsheng, who was wearing a ferocious blood-red armor, slowly walked over and finally stopped at the edge of the pit. His face was covered by the blood-red armor, revealing only a pair of bloodthirsty eyes. At this moment, he was staring coldly at Zhuowen. Zhuowen! You've already lost. In fact, it's a pity to kill a genius like you. Hee, I've changed my mind now. I don't plan to kill you. As long as you sign a contract with me and become my slave for all eternity, I will spare your life. Licking his lips, LV Yongsheng stared indifferently at Zhuowen. Zhuowen was a rank 4 Arcana master. It would be a pity to kill him just like that. As long as LV Yongsheng could become his servant, LV Yongsheng would have done a great service to Muqin Marquis estate. Lost? LV Yongsheng, you think too highly of yourself. I don't think so. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Zhuowen slowly stood up. His hands quickly formed a seal. The 9-wheel sky-burning cauldron suddenly spewed out 3 types of earth fire in front of him. Then, Zhuowen formed a seal and the three types of earth fire merged together. Chapter 487. Blooming tricolor lotus. The three different colored flames merged and formed a brilliant tricolor refining flame. A terrifying aura surged out from the tricolor refining flame and spread throughout the hall like a tide. LV Yongsheng's scarlet eyes slowly narrowed. Looking at the tricolor refining flame in Zhuowen's hand, a trace of fear appeared on his face. He felt that the tricolor refining flame's aura was threatening to him. This kid still hasn't run out of tricks. This guy. Shock finally emerged in LV Yongsheng's heart. Originally, he thought that after Zhuowen's level 4 mental strength was broken by him, Zhuowen was at the end of his rope. However, this guy actually still had a trump card like the tricolored refining flame. LV Yongsheng. I've said it before, it's not that easy to defeat me. Licking his lips, Zhuowen's face revealed a trace of madness. He stomped his foot and instantly, the dense tricolor refining flame condensed together like a storm and finally turned into a boundless sea of fire. Taste the power of this tricolor refining flame. As soon as the tricolor sea of fire formed, Zhuowen waved his right hand and the sea of fire swept forward like raging waves beating the shore. It directly pressed down on LV Yongsheng in front of it. LV Yongsheng's face was extremely gloomy. The power of the tricolor refining flame was somewhat beyond his expectations. He could feel the intense danger contained in the sea of fire above him. He knew that if he was hit directly, he would definitely be seriously injured. Humph! You dare to stop me with this little trick? Ridiculous! With a sneer, LV Yongsheng straightened his back and was not afraid. He waved the ferocious blood spear with his right hand and wiped the tip of the spear with his left palm. Blood spurted out and scattered in the air. Then, LV Yongsheng's long spear pierced through the blood droplets in the air and his left hand continuously made seals. Blood demon flurry eyes. With a low roar, the blood droplets that had been pierced through the air immediately turned into a boundless curtain of blood. With an inconceivable speed, it rapidly spread around the entire hall. For a moment, the entire hall was dyed in a mournful red. What was strange was that these blood curtains were pulsating as if they had a life of their own. It was as if the entire hall had turned into the internal organs of a giant beast, and they were trapped inside. Open. With a stomp of his foot, LV Yongsheng raised his head and roared. His eyes flashed with a dazzling blood-red light. Countless blood-red lines burst out from his body and sprinkled into the blood curtain around him. Rumble. An earth-shaking loud sound reverberated over the entire hall. Immediately, the blood curtain that covered the entire hall wiggled wildly. Soon after, densely packed blood eyes appeared within the blood curtain. The blood-colored eyes continued to move back and forth, as though they were curiously observing their surroundings. There were billions of blood-red eyes in the blood screen. They were densely packed together and looked extremely strange and disgusting. Clang! Countless blood-red lines exploded. The ferocious blood-red armor on the surface of LV Yongsheng's body slowly peeled off, revealing a pale and bloodless face. The blood spear was stabbed in front of him. He held the blood demon corroding bone spear with both hands and knelt on one knee. His ferocious eyes stared at Zhuowen, who was not far away. Zhuowen. The blood demon flurry eyes is my most powerful move. It is also a move that will cut off all means of retreat. After using this move, I no longer have any fighting strength to speak of. If you can take this move, then I will lose. If you can't, then you will die. Haha. LV Yongsheng held the spear with both hands. His blood-dyed hair danced in the wind. He looked up to the sky and laughed like a madman. He had fought to his heart's content in this battle. He did not expect Zhuowen to force him to such an extent. He knew that even if Zhuowen had the three-colored refining flame, it was unlikely that he could withstand his blood demon flurry eyes. The final victory would be his. Swoosh! 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 At this moment, the eyes of the countless number of blood eyes on the enormous blood curtain were focused on the three-colored sea of fire that was surging over. A strange sharp cry sounded. Immediately, countless number of blood lines surged out from the blood eyes. Countless blood lines turned into a huge blood net in the void, blocking the three-colored sea of fire in front of the void. It only stopped the surging three-colored sea of fire in an instant. Boom! 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 What made Zhuowen's face turn gloomy was that the three-colored sea of fire was like a fish caught in a net in front of the blood net. It struggled with all its might, but it was of no use. Instead, the blood net was getting tighter and tighter. In an instant, the three-colored sea of fire was directly crushed into countless pieces by the power of the blood net. Humph! With a muffled groan, Zhuowen continuously retreated. His eyes were extremely gloomy. The power of the blood demon flurry eyes that LV Yongsheng had used in the end was too terrifying. Moreover, the entire hall was densely packed with blood eyes. It was as if he was under surveillance from the sky to the ground. There was nowhere to hide and nowhere to run. Ha! Zhuowen, you're dead, you're dead. The blood demon flurry eyes is almost invincible. Even peak three-wheel emperor realm experts like Su Tianliang and Qin Batian would be put in an extremely difficult position by this move, let alone a mere peak two-wheel emperor realm expert like you. LV Yongsheng laughed heartily. He stared straight at Zhuowen as if he was looking at a dead man. Swoosh! Swoosh! Countless blood-red eyes suddenly blinked, and the sky and the ground were filled with terrifying blood-red lines. Like countless lightning bolts, they enveloped Zhuowen, who was in the center, from all directions. At this moment, Zhuowen couldn't even dodge. What a frightening move. It seems that if I don't use that move, I won't be able to block it. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Zhuowen's expression became extremely calm as he felt the blood lines sweeping towards him from all directions. He patted the nine-wheel burning sky cauldron and skillfully condensed the tricolored flames once again. As soon as the tricolored flames appeared, they were like walls of fire. Brilliant lights and vibrant colors enveloped Zhuowen's entire body. At the same time, Zhuowen clenched his fists. The Icefall Saint rune on the back of his hand began to light up. At this moment, Zhuowen was finally prepared to use the Icefall Saint rune. Furthermore, he was using the tricolored flames to fuse the ice and fire energy. This was the first time he had used the tricolored flames, which were even more powerful than the blood flames. He knew that the backlash would be extremely terrifying. At this moment, it was already a matter of life and death. He had no choice but to take the risk and try to fuse the tricolored flames with the extreme frost. He knew that only the fusion of these two extreme ice and fire energies might be able to block the terrifying blood demon flurry eyes. What a tenacious fellow! Zhuowen, your tricolored flames are completely useless in front of the blood demon flurry eyes. You're just struggling in vain. Seeing Zhuowen release the tricolored flames again, LV Yongsheng's eyes were full of contempt and disdain. The tricolored flames were indeed terrifying, but the blood demon flurry eyes were even more terrifying. In front of the blood demon flurry eyes, the tricolored flames were as fragile as tofu. Boom boom boom. Just as LV Yongsheng said, countless bloodlines arrived in an instant. The walls of fire formed by the tricolored flames completely collapsed and dissipated under the effect of the bloodlines like tofu. In 2 breaths of time, the tricolored wall of fire around Zhuowen had completely collapsed and disappeared. In the next moment, the dense blood veins that looked like blood vessels rushed towards Zhuowen, who was within the wall of fire. Under the bombardment of so many bloodlines, Zhuowen was bound to be blasted into dregs. The joy in LV Yongsheng's eyes became even more intense. His face was brimming with a crazy smile. Boom! When the bloodlines were only 10 feet away from Zhuowen, who was sitting cross-legged below, time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Gusts of strong wind constantly surged in front of Zhuowen. Then, a budding tricolored lotus flower gushed out from Zhuowen's palm. The tricolored lotus flower rapidly expanded and directly enveloped Zhuowen in the center of the lotus. At this time, the blood lines had already arrived in front of him, but they were all blocked by the tricolored flames. Although there were occasional sparks, it ultimately blocked the invasion of the bloodlines. What? It actually blocked it? What is this tricolored lotus flower? It actually blocked the attack of the blood demon Flurry Eyes. LV Yongsheng, who was in the distance, was finally shocked. His eyes widened as he stared blankly at the tricolored lotus flower around Zhuowen. Pst pst pst. A soft sound was heard. Then, LV Yongsheng was shocked to find that the tricolored lotus flower was actually slowly blooming. The 3 petals of different colors slowly opened just like that. Finally, the huge tricolored lotus flower bloomed completely just like that. At the same time, a terrifying and shocking aura suddenly overflowed. Within the tricolored lotus flower, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes. There was a touch of excitement in the depths of his eyes. He finally succeeded in blending. Under the pressure of death, he successfully blended the tricolored lotus flower. However, the price he paid was also extremely high. His arms were almost mangled, revealing eerie white bones. If it weren't for his extremely strong recovery ability, Zhuowen's arms would have been completely crippled. Slowly getting up, Zhuowen gently waved his right hand. The tricolored lotus flower enveloping his body finally gradually shrank to the size of a palm and fell into his palm. Then, Zhuowen stared at LV Yongsheng in front of him with a cold smile on his face. LV Yongsheng. Perhaps the final victor won't be you, but I, Zhuowen. The blood demon Flurry Eye is indeed powerful, but... As he spoke, Zhuowen stomped his foot and threw his right hand with all his might. The beautiful and elegant tricolored lotus flower turned into a tricolored shadow and quickly rushed towards the surrounding blood curtain. Powerful fluctuations slowly spread out, and even the surrounding space showed signs of collapsing. Boom boom boom. Countless blood eyes on the blood curtain also felt the threat from the tricolored lotus flower. They condensed terrifying blood lines and rushed towards the tricolored lotus flower, wanting to completely destroy this strange lotus flower. However, the tricolored lotus flower's power was too terrifying. These bloodlines were like clay oxen entering the sea. They couldn't cause any damage to the tricolored lotus flower at all. Damn it! Blood demon Flurry Eye, explode! Seeing the tricolored lotus getting closer and closer, LV Yongsheng was finally afraid. The power of the tricolored lotus flower was a little too terrifying. Even the blood demon's bloodlines couldn't cause any damage to it. Boom boom boom. LV Yongsheng's shout caused the surrounding curtain of blood to wriggle madly. Next, the numerous blood-red eyes within the curtain of blood abruptly widened and an aura of devastation surged out. Next, the curtain of blood blew up. Explosion isn't your specialty. I can do it too. Tricolored lotus flower, explode. Zhuowen wasn't afraid at all. With a low shout, the fresh and refined 3-colored lotus shrunk and tightened. Unexpectedly, it also exploded abruptly. Chapter 488. A Pyrrhic Victorian earth-shattering explosion rang out, causing the entire hall to shake violently. The surrounding walls, which were as hard as steel, were finally completely shattered at this moment, revealing the deep passageway outside. The blood barrier and the tricolor lotus collided in the end. The intensity of the double explosion had completely exceeded Zhuowen and LV Yongsheng's expectations. The space around the hall completely collapsed at that moment, forming an oval-shaped region of vacuum. Boom! 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 In the end, the hall was split into 2 regions. One was the region of the blood-red explosion, while the other was the region of the tricolor flames. The two huge balls of energy were locked in a stalemate in the air of the hall. The little bastard's tricolor lotus has actually blocked the explosion of the blood demon flurry eyes. LV Yongsheng's eyes widened as he stared at the tricolor flames in the air. He clenched his fists tightly. In order to unleash the blood demon flurry eyes, he had basically used up all of his battle prowess. If he couldn't even finish off Shuo Wen with the blood demon flurry dance eyes, it was very likely that he would end up in a tie with Shuo Wen in the last round. Given LV Yongsheng's arrogance, how could he tolerate such an outcome? I refuse to believe that Shuo Wen's tricolor lotus can last for too long. After all, the explosion of the blood demon flurry eyes is continuous. It won't vanish so quickly. As long as the energy of the tricolor lotus vanishes completely, the scales of victory will probably belong to me. LV Yongsheng was unwilling to give up when he saw the two balls of energy locked in a stalemate in the air. However, he did not lose confidence. He was extremely confident in the power of his blood demon flurry eyes explosion. On the other side of the hall, Shuo Wen slowly stood up. At this moment, his originally bloody hands had basically recovered quite a bit. With the powerful life force provided by the Hades King's heart, Shuo Wen's recovery ability was extremely terrifying. LV Yongsheng's desperate move really is extraordinary. Even the tricolor lotus can't completely crush it. However, we have to end this quickly. We can't let this drag on any longer. Frowning slightly, Shuo Wen's eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. The ice-fire saint symbol on the back of his hands lit up again. Then, a strange blood-red flame gathered in his left hand and an extreme cold gathered in his right hand. Shuo Wen decided to use another dose of strong medicine. Fortunately, I have the support of the Netherworld King's heart. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to use the icy fire holy talisman again. Muttering to himself, Shuo Wen skillfully combined the blood flames and extreme cold. Soon, a budding blood lotus slowly appeared in Shuo Wen's palm, and a powerful aura instantly burst out. As if he'd noticed the aura of the blood-colored lotus, LV Yongsheng frowned slightly. He turned his head and instantly saw the strange blood-colored lotus in Shuo Wen's palm, causing his entire body to tremble and be stunned on the spot. How can this guy still use such a move? LV Yongsheng began to stutter. His eyes were fixed on the blood lotus in Shuo Wen's palm, and there was fear in the depths of his eyes. The tricolor lotus just now had appeared from Shuo Wen's palm. Now, another similar blood lotus had appeared. How could LV Yongsheng not be terrified? The power of the tricolor lotus was comparable to the self-destruction of the blood demon flurry eyes. Although the aura of the blood lotus was not comparable to the tricolor lotus, it was still extremely terrifying. If the blood lotus exploded like the tricolor lotus just now, the balance of the two stalemate energies in the void would be broken instantly. Is Shuo Wen still human? Does such a terrifying move not have any backlash? This guy can actually use it again. At that moment, LV Yongsheng began to curse in his heart. Shuo Wen's performance is too abnormal. He has so many trump cards. Whoosh! A blood-red lotus abruptly shot out from Shuo Wen's palm. It tore through space and finally blasted into the two clumps of energy that were locked in a stalemate. Soon after, an incomparably huge blood-red lotus slowly bloomed in the air, followed by an even more intense explosion. With the help of the blood lotus, the explosion area of the tricolor lotus in the void instantly expanded, completely suppressing the blood explosion area. After a while, the explosion area was completely annihilated by the tricolor lotus. Puchi! LV Yongsheng spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was extremely pale, and his whole body flew out like a withered leaf. At that moment, his face was filled with the color of death. In the end, he did not expect that he would actually be defeated. Moreover, he was defeated by Shuo Wen, whom he had looked down on previously. LV Yongsheng. Be a good boy and accept your death. A loud voice rolled out. Zhuowen waved his right hand, and the earth-shattering explosion in the void suddenly fell, directly blasting towards LV Yongsheng, who was not far away. If LV Yongsheng was hit by the explosion, even if he had 9 lives, it would not be enough. Damn it! Zhuowen, you'd better remember this. LV Yongsheng's expression was extremely unsightly when he saw the explosion in the void descending towards him. He tapped his right palm, directly abandoning the heaven rank imprint, and directly teleported away in a beam of light. Whoosh! Zhuowen waved his right hand, and the extremely terrifying explosion in the void suddenly disappeared. At the same time, he flipped his palm, and the golden heaven rank imprint appeared in his palm. It seems that LV Yongsheng is afraid in the end. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly echoed in his mind, and there was a trace of schadenfreude in her voice. Puchi. Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood, and soon after, a terrifying blood mist burst out from the surface of Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen directly knelt on the ground with a dispirited expression. Kid! Are you alright? Xiao Hei did not expect Zhuowen to suddenly spit out blood, and hurriedly asked in a worried manner. Shaking his head, Zhuowen bitterly smiled and said, I used the holy symbol of icy fire twice in a row, and even used the overloaded tricolor lotus. The backlash has already taken effect. At this moment, Zhuowen's entire body trembled, and blood flowed from his body like a faucet that was not turned on properly. Even with the terrifying recovery ability of the Hell King's heart, Zhuowen's injuries were still not light. Suddenly, a golden light emerged from Zhuowen's chest, and soon after, Zhuowen felt a cooling energy surge from his heart to his entire body. In an instant, the exhaustion and pain in his body actually decreased by a lot. He frowned slightly. Only now did he notice that strands of golden energy had actually surged out from his heart, spreading throughout his body through his meridians. Zhuowen was no stranger to this energy. It was the 3 droplets of essence blood he had obtained in the last round. Although Zhuowen had absorbed most of the essence blood, his cultivation level was too low, so he hadn't been able to absorb all of it. As a result, a portion of the energy had been stored in his heart in case he needed it. However, he had never thought that Zhuowen's injuries would instead activate the essence blood energy stored in his heart. As the essence blood energy constantly flowed through his meridians, Zhuowen felt indescribably comfortable. It was numb, itchy, and warm. 15 minutes later, all the remaining essence blood energy in his heart had actually been completely absorbed by Zhuowen. Miraculously, Zhuowen discovered that most of his injuries had healed, and his aura had become slightly stronger. He had probably reached the level of a half-step ultimate emperor. He was only half a step away from becoming an ultimate emperor. Right now, as long as you have enough external energy, you'll probably be able to undergo the 3 heavenly tribulations immediately and reach the ultimate emperor realm. Xiao Hei had also sensed the changes in Zhuowen's body. Her voice contained a sliver of praise. Clearly, she was quite satisfied that Zhuowen's cultivation had increased again. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuowen nodded seriously and said, yes. As long as I still have a droplet of essence blood from an ultimate emperor, I'll be able to undergo the heavenly tribulations immediately. However, I don't have enough energy right now, and my foundation is unstable, so it's not very likely for now. Actually, you only need to cultivate for a month, and you'll be able to store enough energy in your body. After a month, you'll be able to undergo the 3 heavenly tribulations, Xiao Hei said indifferently. Zhuowen nodded slightly. His current strength was already comparable to a mid-stage ultimate emperor realm cultivator. The so-called 3 heavenly tribulations were nothing to him at all, so Zhuowen didn't think much of them. If other cultivators knew about Zhuowen's thoughts, they would definitely be speechless. Others revered the heavenly tribulations like gods and feared them to death. However, Zhuowen could not wait for the heavenly tribulations to arrive sooner. He could be said to be a complete freak. The final round of battles has ended. It looks like the spots to enter the Origin Chi Tower have been completely decided. I wonder what the treasure in this hall is. It couldn't have been destroyed by my battle with LV Yongsheng, right? At this moment, Zhuo Wen, who'd smoothly defeated LV Yongsheng, was in an extremely good mood, and he instantly swept the surroundings with his gaze. However, he noticed that the hall was already extremely tattered and in a mess, and it had practically become a miserable ruin. There wasn't the slightest trace of a treasure. It shouldn't be. When you entered the hall earlier, there was nothing except for the surrounding stone pillars. Try using the heaven rank imprint in your hand to sense it. After all, LV Yongsheng's heaven rank imprint is the key to opening the hall's treasure, Xiao He said doubtfully. Hearing this, Zhuo nodded. With a flip of his hand, he immediately took out LV Yongsheng's heaven rank imprint. As soon as the heaven rank imprint was released, the golden light on its surface became several times more intense. Whoosh! The heaven rank imprint turned into a golden light and suddenly left Zhuowen's palm. It actually drilled into the ground at the center of the hall and disappeared from Zhuowen's sight. This. Could it be that the hall's treasure is underground? As if thinking of something, a strange expression appeared on Zhuowen's face. Along the way, this was the strangest method of storing treasures he had encountered. It was actually hidden underground. Rumble. Suddenly, the entire hall violently shook. Soon after, the ground at the center of the hall completely collapsed like countless spiderwebs. In the end, a golden coffin broke out of the ground and directly appeared in front of Zhuowen. Chapter 489. Nirvana of the great Sun. Zhuowen's face darkened as he stared at the huge golden coffin before him. Although the coffin looked quite impressive, was he supposed to use it as a weapon? Xiao He. Can you tell what it is? Zhuowen could only ask Xiao He for help as he had no other choice. Swish. Xiao He suddenly shot out from between Zhuowen's brows. Soon after, he observed the golden coffin before him with a grave expression. He said, "This thing is not simple. This dragon lord actually feels a trace of a threatening aura from within it. This feeling is something that I have never felt in many years. I'm afraid that the thing within the coffin is not ordinary." You're saying that there's something in the coffin? It can't be a corpse, right? Zhuowen suddenly asked nervously. He was not afraid of corpses. Instead, he was worried about the methods of the owner of the coffin. The person who could create such a golden coffin was definitely not weak. Only an ultimate ninth will emperor or above would be able to do something like this. What a coward. Even if there's a corpse inside, what's there to be afraid of? It's already dead. Do you think it'll eat you? Xiao He had clearly misunderstood Zhuowen's fear and spoke disdainfully. Shaking his head, Zhuowen did not refute. Instead, he said seriously, "Then what do we do now? Do we just open the coffin?" Yeah. The thing should be inside the coffin. Although the coffin has the ability to block out the senses of the soul, I can still vaguely sense that there's definitely something good inside. Xiao He nodded as she crossed her little paws. Zhuowen had the same idea. He took a step forward and arrived before the coffin in an instant. He slammed his right hand against the coffin lid. With a crisp sound, Zhuowen flipped the golden coffin lid over. A golden light suddenly burst out. Zhuowen was caught off guard and was directly hit by this golden light. He groaned and could not help but retreat a dozen steps. Fortunately, this golden light was not very strong. It should be the instinctive reaction of the coffin opening, so Zhuowen was not injured. The golden light dissipated, and Zhuowen arrived in front of the coffin in an instant. He couldn't wait to look inside the coffin, but when he saw what was inside the coffin, he couldn't help but be stunned. This is really a corpse. Xiao He, who was hovering in the air, said with disappointment in her eyes. There was nothing else in the coffin, only a golden skeleton lying quietly in the coffin. Strange waves of energy were emitted from the skeleton, and the air around it was faintly producing tearing sounds. No. This skeleton is not simple. Zhuowen did not show any disappointment. Instead, his sharp eyes stared at the golden skeleton in the coffin. His pupils were locked tight like an eagle's, because he saw that there seemed to be some small words carved on the surface of the golden skeleton. Taking a closer look, Zhuowen was surprised to find that there were words carved on the surface of the golden skeleton. From head to toe, it was basically filled with small words. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to notice these words at all. These words, could it be that some kind of secret cultivation method is recorded? Xiao He also noticed the difference in the skeleton. She hurriedly took a closer look. When she saw these words, her face was also filled with surprise. Maybe. It's just that these words are messy. I can't tell what is written at all. After carefully looking at the contents, Zhuowen found that the words inside were not neat at all. Moreover, the sentences were not smooth, as if they were randomly carved. In any case, he could not understand the contents of these words. Xiao He also shook her head after observing for a moment. Obviously, she was the same as Zhuowen. She did not understand the words in the golden skeleton. What is the deal with this coffin and the golden skeleton? There were hints in the previous halls. Why is there no hint at all in this hall? Moreover, these treasures in the coffin and the skeleton are too strange. Frowning slightly, Zhuowen felt a little irritated. He had painstakingly defeated LV Yongsheng. Was the reward he received going to be in vain like this? The more he thought about it, the more irritated he became. Zhuowen could not help but hit the golden coffin with his palm. Clang! A clear sound rang out. Immediately after, Zhuowen was stunned to find that the golden coffin, which seemed incomparably hard, had actually shattered. The golden skeleton lying in the coffin slid to the side and fell directly onto Zhuowen. The moment the golden skeleton came into contact with Zhuowen, a golden light instantly burst out from the surface of the skeleton. Immediately after, the entire skeleton emitted an extremely dazzling golden light. As the golden light flourished, the golden skeleton slowly disappeared. As the golden skeleton continued to disappear, the words carved on the surface of the skeleton separated one after another. They formed a golden torrent and drilled into Zhuowen's forehead at lightning speed. Zhuowen was stunned. He did not expect this to happen. Fortunately, after the golden torrent entered his forehead, it did not cause any destruction. Instead, it was extremely gentle and docile, causing Zhuowen to feel a sense of numbness. Moreover, as the golden torrent entered Zhuowen's mind, waves of unfamiliar information filled his mind. This is a royal tier body tempering method, nirvana of the great sun. When Zhuowen gradually accepted the information, he finally understood the true content of the information. It was actually a royal tier body tempering method. Moreover, it was one of the best royal tier body tempering methods. If successfully cultivated, one's body would become indestructible. The owner of the golden skeleton should have cultivated the nirvana of the great sun, but it had not reached perfection. It had only reached the level of indestructible bones. If one cultivated the nirvana of the great sun to perfection, one's body would become indestructible. What? The contents of the golden skeleton are a royal tier body tempering method? Xiao He could not help but be shocked. He stared at Zhuowen, who was full of joy, and asked. Yes. This method is called nirvana of the great sun. It is a body tempering method from the inside out. If one wants to reach the level of indestructible, one must be indestructible on the inside before one can be indestructible on the outside. However, the contents inside are extremely obscure. It is probably not easy to cultivate the nirvana of the great sun. Nodding, Zhuowen frowned slightly. The nirvana of the great sun seemed to be extremely powerful, but after reading it once, he actually did not know anything about it. He only knew the specific levels of the nirvana of the great sun. The great sun nirvana art was divided into 5 realms. They were death, destruction, nirvana, dharma, and undying and indestructible. Other than the information about these realms that Zhuowen knew, the rest of the content made him feel that it was hard to understand. A royal tier body tempering method is extremely difficult to obtain. Moreover, it is even more troublesome and difficult to cultivate than a royal tier armor skill. It would be strange if you could understand it just by reading it. Xiao He rolled her eyes at Zhuowen, and the corners of her mouth curled up as she spoke. Zhuowen shook his head when he heard this. Xiao He was right. It was common knowledge that a royal tier body tempering method was difficult to cultivate. Looks like I still have to slowly comprehend this nirvana of the great sun. However, Zhuowen faintly noticed in his heart that this nirvana of the great sun was somewhat related to Buddhism on earth in his previous life. After all, nirvana was a Buddhist term, and ordinary people would not use such obscure terms. However, this trace of thought only appeared for a moment before it was thrown to the back of Zhuowen's mind. He was not on earth now, but on this unfamiliar continent. How could there possibly be Buddhism here? Since I have obtained the treasure of the last hall, it's time to go out. After putting away the nirvana of the great sun, Zhuowen's gaze shifted slightly to the front of the hall. There was a magnificent golden arched door there. Zhuowen knew that behind this arched door was the exit of the Trial Mountain. Whoosh! With a stomp of his foot, Zhuowen's entire body turned into a shadow and directly disappeared into the arched door in front of him. On the platform at the top of the Trial Mountain, many people helplessly discovered that the light screens on the disk of heaven and earth had all become blurry. It was obvious that the battle inside was extremely intense, and the monitoring devices were all shattered by the aftermath of the battle. The battle has already entered the white-hot stage. The outcome should be decided soon. Without the monitoring of the light screens, the number of people who would be able to walk out of the Trial Mountain this time was full of suspense. Everyone's eyes were filled with anticipation and eagerness. They all wanted to see who would be able to last until the end and appear on the platform at the top of the Trial Mountain. Among them, Gu Tian, who was in the crowd, seemed especially nervous. At this moment, his hands were tightly clenched, and his palms were already sweating. He knew that Zhuowen's opponent this time was LV Yongsheng, the top genius of the 5 superpowers. At the same time, he was also a monstrous genius on the Azure Emperor leaderboard and a third-wheel Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Even if Zhuowen had the mental strength of a level 4 lower tier, his chances of winning against such a powerhouse were extremely low. Brother Gu, don't worry too much. Even if Zhuowen loses to LV Yongsheng, it won't reduce Marquis Lu's investment in him. After all, just Zhuowen's status as a level 4 Arcana Master is enough for many big shots to try to rope him in. Qiu Chou seemed to have noticed Gu Yutian's nervousness. He smiled slightly and patted the latter's shoulder enthusiastically. Gu Yutian forced a smile and nodded. The nervousness in his heart didn't lessen by much because of this. At the same time, the atmosphere between the 5 magnates at the front of the group became solemn. Lu Nantian, the master of the meteorite, and the others' gazes also became serious. Obviously, they were also looking forward to the number of people who would walk out of the Trial Mountain. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air suddenly surged out from the entire platform. The sound of something tearing through the air suddenly reverberated across the entire platform. Hearing this sound, everyone raised their heads and looked over. Then, they were surprised to see a huge golden door descending from the sky like a falling meteorite. Boom! The huge golden door finally landed beside the heaven and earth tablet. The powerful force smashed a huge deep hole in the ground. Dust filled the air and whistled loudly. Everyone knew that the person who walked out of the golden door would be the first genius to pass all the stages of the Trial Mountain. However, who would this genius be? Everyone was looking forward to it. Creak. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.